the real issue is not so much Whitney's cultural dilution. It's more to do with the fact that people and audiences at large in maybe America and the world are more resistant to a black aesthetic.
Well, Dane's been clever. Did she sell out?
No, she didn't. And actually, black women have the right to be pop stars. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be a pop star and you're a black woman, good. You don't have to always be a gospel singer or like a member of the 3 Degrees. So she didn't sell out at all. She did what she enjoyed.
Listen, there's no judgment here. I've gone through it myself. I've got a routine about it at the moment. Just if I go home to my birth home at Christmas, just eating I know it sounds ridiculous. Just like eating blueberries from the pot. I know blueberries. Yeah, something that simple is a signal that I've left the mothership.
Yeah.
And I'm unashamed to say it. Partly I do want to be on Radio 4, but the other thing is, it's my career, so I do make alterations about what I genuinely want to do based on an unashamed, ambitious bent in my mind. How much Whitney is unashamed and ambitious bent versus she just wanted to be a black pop star? Because I'm not convinced. I think she's a little bit, no, I want a big house more than...
That's okay, right? It's okay.
It's okay, but
yeah.
it's okay, but we've got to wrestle
I know that
integrity.
After that backlash, she changed her style of music, right? So she changed her style and she said that she just wanted to be herself and she started dating Bobby Brown. So I know that must have hit her really, really hard. So she clearly did care about it. She didn't want to be seen as a sellout. And I do think that was genuine, because culture is important, like feeling part of the community is important.
Have you ever pretended to be more common than you are? I do all the time. So like, I know I started scumbag, but I can't and Charlotte can't unlearn it. But as soon as I'm at Ocean Beach Club Ibiza and I've joined the table with the lads from Kent, that's it, you know, I'm like, my voice is down here, I'll do anything to fit in.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that's going to admit that?
No, it's code switching.
All right, we might...
I think everyone kind of does that. I'm performing in places, but the rationale for me is that think about it in terms of a song. So initially you have to just get the beat of your audience, and it's just a very basic beat where you're just working out. This is just very basic exchange between both of us. Or think about in boxing. It's like once you start, there is a very set way of combinations and footwork that you will employ in order for you to perform the task. Once you learn the rhythm of wherever you're performing or whoever you're performing for, then you're able to start doing stuff like showboating and being able to innovate and then plant more of yourself in there.
So we could argue that Whitney Houston's first performance was the first punch throw, where she felt the beat and the footwork of the mainstream culture she was in. She adjusted her footwork and her dance and her career and her musicality based on the culture she was sparring with, which is the dominant American culture.
Okay. Especially because like when your endeavor when you are a black creative is very different to a lot of other people, because not only are you taking on the pressure of having to deliver genuine art, essentially you're not just a performer, you are an ambassador for your culture and for our experience, because we're not represented a lot of the time through legislative or political economic means. People need that, and it goes on today and stuff like that, where people exist outside of the I guess the normal generic indicators of a certain genre of music. So you know, we'll talk about our Jay-Z and we'll talk about like, you know, our rappers and our Dr. Dre's and stuff, but we don't necessarily talk about like, you know, Heather Small from M People, or like the other, you know, I don't know the guy's name, but the black dude from Lighthouse Family, or the black guy from Charles and Eddie, guys who made a foray into like, you know, British music. If you appear to deviate from the quintessential aesthetic for a black creative, then it's like you are selling out, or you're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
I know we're talking about race, and I'm not just trying to jump in on it, but it's like you're describing my school experience.
Yeah.
I went to a comprehensive in a rough area, and if I dared to get a good result or go to an after-school club, I was deviating from what was expected of me. You know, so who smoked weed first? Who lost their virginity first? Who can you beat up? Yeah. They were the 3 commandments.
As a boy. Yeah, Charles Ford.
Yeah.
That's the other
one. Oh yeah, football at the school, which I wasn't, which is another thing we went
exactly.
Anyway, envelope 2. It's like painting and reading, sorry.
I've been there.
She lied. In a 2002 interview with Diane Sawyer, she said she thought of her drug use as a habit, not an addiction, and talked euphemistically about partying. She also said she made too much money ever to smoke crack, and famously said, "Crack is whack." But when images of her squalid bathroom appeared in the press in 2006, crack pipes were amongst the drug paraphernalia strewn across the place.
Yeah, when did it become acceptable for singers, especially pop singers, to admit drug use? Whitney wasn't a wild child rock star. Her image was that of a wholesome, God-fearing girl next door. Did she have to lie, or was she just someone leading a double life?
I think she had to lie.
Yeah.
Like it's the same pressure that came from this whole realizing this pop star, especially where there hadn't been a precedent. So it's maintaining this clear-cut, Eurocentric image, and then I imagine definitely having an upbringing in the church.
Yeah.
She had to lie, definitely, and that's a famous interview. And she did that interview. So she was a victim of her addiction, right? And she did that interview because she knew that she was struggling, and she was like, I still need my career, right? So how can I keep my addiction, but in the dark, but keep my career? And she wouldn't have been the only pop star at the time to have that kind of problem. There would have been loads of pop stars who were struggling with addiction that we'll never know about because their brand never got impacted. It's just unfortunate for Whitney that she was surrounded by people who were willing to expose her.
Yeah.
How much, Eddie, can we say, it's quite tough being in the spotlight, my childhood wasn't ideal, therefore I'm going to smoke crack until my head explodes? Is this a rabbit hole where we let people off?
Fresh meat!
There is some addiction is a blight, but there is some agency when you are addicted. Some of the things she went on to do around her child, we'll come on to talk a bit more about that in a second. There is a point where you have to say, come on, maybe an addict, you didn't need to do X, Y, and Z. You can't let her completely off the hook here.
But it's different things, right? So her addiction is not her fault. Like, Athena's right, she's a victim. She's a victim of all the societal pressure that's on her. She's held to a much higher standard than other pop stars are. She's also got, more pressure on her career because she's, a black female artist who's, paving the way. She's doing, she's massive. She's completely blown up. She's got this empire around her. She's got all this money flowing in.
Apparently really emotionally devastating. That and her dad's betrayal. Her dad famously betrayed her financially. Her dad was on this pedestal. He's a god in her eyes.
What did he do? I didn't even know about that.
Well, he was misappropriating funds, ripping her off, millions of pounds, and then when she cut him off, he sued her for £100 million, saying, "You owe me, I made you who you are."
That's so rough. Okay, so she's having a bad time. Let's summarise that as a bad time. And I don't think we can blame people for drug addiction. That's not her fault at all. Some of her actions.
You can blame Bobby Brown.
Bobby Brown.
Bobby Brown.
I disagree.
God. See,
I disagree because it was actually Whitney who introduced Bobby Brown to cocaine.
Oh, I did not know that.
Now, Bobby Brown liked to drink, but there is strong evidence that Whitney was the one.
Yeah.
Who liked the old Colombian matching powder.
Exactly. However, the thing is, but people forget, where she grew up, her upbringing was crazy rough. So, it was actually, everyone used to refer to Whitney as Nippy, and she was the young one, and it was actually her older brothers and stuff who were people that used to procure drugs and get the drugs. So when it comes to celebrity, it's very hard to look at a singularity because there's an entire economy that surrounds these people, and they have people that their orbit depends on that star and how well it, how brightly it burns. On our own little modest scales, we do experience.
Don't take another
we
fucking
go up,
step
we
or
show
we're going to
down.
die.
I would find it very
Just
hard.
stay there.
I'm only drinking red wine, but you can see how it starts. There is that natural association with the show comes down.
You still out
it's
there?
weird when you're comedy book, you're everyone's best mate for half an hour, and then you're rocking back and forth in a travel lodge.
Fresh meat, get over here. No, move.
Exactly.
Don't
And
listen
you're
to
painting
him.
alcohol.
Come on.
You're painting alcohol. And also, it's alcohol's a
The
depressant.
earth is just a
Get off
big
the adrenaline
round
rush of coming
ball,
off stage. It's like,
and we're
well,
all
I can't
holding
manage
onto
his
it
nerves.
with our feet.
Okay, well, I'll take this depressant that will kind of relax me.
If
People
our
tend to
feet
validate
let
your
go, we
performance
can
by being
go
like,
flying
great
out
show,
into
mate. Come
space,
drink.
man. I
So
told
you
him
can
not
sleepwalk
to
into it
eat
without
all
even
that
noticing.
acid. No, it's not about the acid.
Because it's not like with alcohol.
This is for your own good.
Obviously, we
I'm
perform.
gonna give you the count of 5 to get off that
Is
spot,
there
or
a
I'm gonna
correlation
turn you into
between
Chuck
how you
Steak.
think the show's gone and how
5.
much
I'm gonna die
food you
either
might
way.
take afterwards? Because
Don't
that's what I
test
think
me,
having a
lab rat.
massive
I'm
scale
not
with
fucking
the
around
more it
4.
spiraled
You know
out
what
control,
space
the more
sounds like?
the substance consumption. So
People
if us on our
screaming.
little
3.
tiny,
Tell my mother
I know
love
that
her.
if I've had a shot if I've had a bad gig, you could almost the
It was for his
milliliterage
own
of
good.
wine
He
goes
shouldn't have
up in
taken all
relation
that
to
acid.
the actual
Shit, he was so
driving.
right. I don't know what
And the
the
difference
hell
in
I
comedy
was
musicians is
thinking.
that when you're a comedian, you end up on your own after this. Whereas
just
when
keep
you're a
driving.
musician,
We get in,
you know,
we
you've got
get
your,
out.
your band,
Keep going.
you've got your
Copy
hangers
that.
on, you've got
Man,
your
this new
band,
badge is
yeah. So that is going to
powerful,
encourage
bro.
more drug use because they're everywhere. But when you're on your own, you're not from the job.
Plus, you can't just like get
Don't
blind
talk to
every
me.
night.
Hell
You
hit.
physics
Come on,
game.
Mr.
You've got to
Chemist,
go and
let's go
dance
for
the
a
next
walk.
day. Like that's the other difference
Where
between.
we going?
The other main
Come
difference
on!
between with
Who
a
the
policeman
fuck
and
are
us
those guys?
is that literally standing still. Like we have a lot of fun
I
with
got
that.
a shot!
But just standing still, you know, like for the most part, silent comedians, we obviously if it's a taxing job, it's very hard for all of us.
I heard you to use
We're not that.
Fuck! They got him! Who are these
like a
guys?
crack pipe.
We gotta protect the free shop.
After all that intelligent regulation today, and I do a late time on the work.
What the fuck do you even want? White coats? Quick! North side of the warehouse!
Child.
So I feel like I love what everyone's saying here, but let's elaborate on this important.
So, with you, Bobby Brown child, Bobby Christina, was born in the spotlight. She appeared on stage with her mother on a reality TV show. She also witnessed her mother and father's descent into drug abuse. Whitney's real-life bodyguard Dave Roberts stood on Bobby's birth.
More
Came to
coming
confirm and just decided to get worse.
Yeah, in the 2008 documentary contained an allegation that Bobby
East side,
Christina
east side,
wanted to kill her
coming from the
mother
storm drain.
without being found out
We
how
got
bad
a
his
heli.
childhood was. And plenty would argue that Bobby's horrendously short life was almost predestined. Now I feel like we've really pulled out punches for and of course a bad child. It's so hard coming out of that puberty culture. I'm not letting her get away with this one. She's about 2 steps away from manslaughter of that girl with some of the stuff she put me through. One of the most chilling interviews I saw was with one of Whitney's former personal assistants where she begged Bobby Christina not to go into her parents' bedroom when the little kid doesn't eventually go in, and when she went in, Bobby seen her so high, drawn like devil faces on the walls and pipes. This girl was getting on for manslaughter by her parents. Unforgivable, evil, so through the hoop.
I do agree, actually, and if there were no people, social services would have got involved.
Yeah.
Because if you've got 2 drug-addicted parents, right, on like, you know, not just like, they're not just having shandy on a Friday, they're like, those are the worst drugs you can get addicted to. They're taken away, the responsibility will not be with them anymore. So, yeah, it's pretty horrendous that she was put up in that environment, and I think she died so young. You can only assume that she became incredibly affected, became an addict herself, maybe she was born addicted. You know, and then
they never clarified the cause of death. They just know she was found in the bathtub almost to the day 3 years later. It's hard not to think. Maybe it's hard not to. Yeah. Maybe it's
Found out. In that documentary, there's a shot of her going on stage with her mum. She goes,
yeah. And again, that's what it's not like, oh, my back is so bad, I can't completely pregnant. Here's my 3-year-old daughter on stage. I'm sorry, there is agency dragging a tiny child on stage in an arena. That said, I used to put my own daughter on stage during a recording. Seriously?
Gorgeous guy here.
But I would always love that.
We got more over here.
no crack fight, it was just decorating.
No.
Slightly better. Following the line of okay. Following the line.
Some people, it's an indication of love. Like, as twisted as it is, like...
To include.
It's to include.
To include in your life.
So go on, Jodie, sorry, I stopped you mid-flow, so we need to pick this apart. What's your... Because we've been so understanding and wearing our woolly cardigans with Whitney's addictions and cultural background.
I love
woolly
the cardigan.
Woolly cardigan off. This is a vote for evil that outshines everything that's gone before, is it not? For the life of your own child.
It's pretty evil, yeah. I mean,
Pretty evil.
I would say that it's capitalism. I blame capitalism because it's the same as what Damon was saying earlier. There's an entourage around them that aren't calling social services. So I think there's lots and lots of people to blame for it. And at that point it becomes food, because when a child's involved, you should stop and you should like maybe give a child like another family member.
Remember grandparents like that? I can't go to my mum. It's her house, but the grandparents.
We used to see the bond, toxic bond with Bobby above everything else, above her own career, above her voice, and above her own child. I hear what you're saying about addiction, but at some point that crack pipe shag sex.
Oh, what point, because I know we were sort of speaking earlier a bit about Robin, her best friend.
Well, okay, if they're in part of their unhappiness and getting trapped in 2.4 children, family dynamics, this is some of the wildest thing out there because she was not just bisexual, she was a gay woman who loved this figure that we always see next to her, archive Robin, a woman who I think is uncontroversial to say probably gay, but some people around would say that it's also gay. Right, so we're putting all this race and childhood stuff on top of it. It could be sort of much simpler story. It's a sexually unfulfilled woman who went there.
I mean, I think there's like lots of really, really difficult shit that women's dealing with. But yeah, I mean, hashtag women gay. It's gay. Love it. I mean, bisexual. Like, I'm not discrediting the fact that she could have like also been fully in love with Bobby Brown. But I think that all of the pressure that was on her when the Robin stuff happened must have been horrendous. Like, can you imagine the amount of stuff wasn't acceptable? Everyone is fully comfortable with going, well, Robin's gay. Look at her, she's got short hair, she's definitely a lesbian. But everyone is still questioning about Whitney. They're almost scared that she's got this lesbian around her. So they're shocked that they know she's lesbian and possibly gay. She looks so fair. And it's like, that must mess with your head.
Well, and what about your background? Where I can only speak to my own background, ultra, silverback, hetero, metal welding, that's what my dad was like. I am straight, I'm the guys, I'm here, and no, but as a child, you know, I wanted to learn dances, skip, I never had a girlfriend, I couldn't get any girls, but my dad put 2 and 6 together and got 5, and it wasn't happening where I'm from. There's no gay people in my family, no gay people in my road, no gay people in my postcode. Do the maths. Yeah. What about where you came from?
It's not the same thing, really. I think when I was growing up, I had to look super feminine. I think people are more uncomfortable with female masculinity than they are with lesbianism. I mean, Russell, you are dressed like a lesbian today. You're both wearing black t-shirts with black skinnies and not. So I noticed that.
I saw Susie Ruffle said something to me once, like, I realise Laurie could have membership to the lesbian club, and I was like, oh no, I'm gutted I can't join you, but actually with that hair you can.
You basically have the same hair as well.
I know, I downloaded the perfect app.
Unacceptable. Stop being funny.
Dave, is it possible for Whitney to be gay? Would it have been possible?
As an out?
Yeah, would she?
No. So we as well as just the again the aversion and the lack of awareness of sexuality within the diaspora. She comes from a Christian background.
Yeah.
So I think her mother was so her mother was usually always saying that that was like.
It's a horrible irony. Her mum's name is actually Sissy. I've just got one last question. You've got to go to the vote, and you know you've got a 10-month-old daughter, right? Listen to what we're saying here. Is it stretching it too much to say that she was, because she was an oppressed gay woman, she resented the whole family in it so much that part of her resented what Bobby represented, that she was dragging her back to normality? Is there an aspect to that? And can you forgive Whitney enough to possibly vote Genius Limited when I ask you to?
I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to vote for because I'm really surprised. But absolutely, it could be.
I'm otherwise occupied, so call back later. You heard?
A highly important part of yourself is going to send you crazy.
She could just be an arsehole that took drugs, was a shit mum.
Is that all of them?
She should be just on top of that.
I can't believe they took him. Who the fuck even
So
ordered
she
that?
just thought, you know what,
We got work
this
to do,
is
Meat
just going to
Fresh.
happen. By the time
Finding
probably
out who
the
that
came
was
around, like you
made
said,
it skull
it just
fuck
started
sick.
getting worse. She was an addict by the time the baby came around, so she wasn't in the best place to learn how to do this life-changing thing.
But she could have chosen rehab. She could have given that
chosen
baby
Kevin
to someone.
Costner, do you know what I mean? But
She could have protected that baby and given it to someone.
She could have done lots of things, but nobody around her was enabling her to do that. Do you know what I mean? So everyone was encouraging her.
And it's time to vote. I'm hoping I've put enough poison in your forehead because I don't have to vote. I can go home and listen to Dance with Somebody on loop, knowing I've not said anything totally categorical about this woman. You lot, on the other hand, are about to. Jodie, I'm going to ask you to vote first. Jodie Mitchell, evil or genius?
Guys, I'm going genius. I'm 100% going genius. Russell, I'm sorry. I know that you were really invested in this.
Let me just get a picture of the young Bobby Christine up on my phone. Little hair done on stage, eyes bright, full of life. Genius, why?
Because I don't care about children, because I'm a big lesbian. I can't help that. That's the end of it. I hate baby food.
Using the vocal interpret. This is not even a songwriter. You're putting her vocal interpretive genius is enough for you to swing your G. I mean, you voted now, but that's your case.
Here's how I see it. I think that I don't know that much about her as a person, but I think that she seemed to be a good person that had an inordinate amount of pressure on her. She wasn't allowed to be with the person she loved, hashtag Robin and Whitney forever. She had to mould herself into someone she felt fundamentally uncomfortable with. Then the pressure of all of that forced her to take loads of drugs. Maybe the first time it wasn't really her fault, it just happened because she had to be on it. She had to have the energy to perform. She took some coke after a show. Everyone was taking it, blah, 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 blah. After that point, she couldn't make rational thought because crack became so addictive. Really bad stuff happened with her daughter. That's horrendous. I don't blame her for it.
It's a genius, but Judy's got it for. Yep. I'm going to come to Dane next. I'm saving the mother of a daughter till last. So I'm the father of a daughter. We're going to, I feel like we should fall out. Dane?
You're through to your garage. You need me to bring you a ride?
I'm going to carry by saying there's a lot of romance behind my perspective. And I feel like it's very hard because it's very hard to see the flaws in that person. This is someone who's probably struggling with a certain element of drug addiction and identity crises way before the spotlight was on them. That coming and that validation, that's not going to change that. And so all this trauma was already in place. And if we strip away the fame and the success, if you heard about a crackhead giving her birth to a child with an alcoholic, social services was swept a long time ago and taking care of that. And while she's responsible, I wouldn't say she's culpable. There's a difference. So it's her child, she made a child, so she's responsible for her child. But I don't think it's that way to me. The genius. The genius that way to me. I think there's a lot of words today, but we all know he's uncomfortable with what he's just said. That's why.
It's coming at you. I'll get back to it then.
For a very long time.
I don't want to bring in more material into your head before you vote for you, but we should probably mention, yes, there was drug abuse. The brother was doing heroin from 10 years old, but Whitney was skimmed off by her mum and sent to a private school, which is why she sounds quite well spoken. That was not a foreign accent, so she did have the benefit of a private education. I'm not saying she wasn't still going back home to the problem environment, but it's not you I'm trying to confuse, Dave. This lady.
That's okay, make me lactate, I don't mind.
The show's not over until I milk one of the panelists.
Stop.
No, come on, Azina. This is what I want you to do. It's your first time on the show. Is see some scales in your head.
Right.
On one side, I want you to hear all that a celestial, God-given gift.
That's what I'm doing.
The music of Whitney that pushes through all the deprivation to create this artist we all love. But on the other side, I want you to see a dead child, and then I want you to vote evil or genius. I am joining the link, me, between Bobby Christina's demise and Whitney, the environment Whitney chose to keep her in. I don't care the backlash we'll get to that. That's the link I choose to make. Do you make the same link? And if you do, is it enough to outweigh the genius?
I don't make the same link. I don't. Nice try. I don't think she's a genius. Okay. And I'll tell you why. First of all, The Bodyguard's one of my favourite films ever.
No, I didn't know
Groundbreaking.
Wow, after all that,
Just stop that. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Yeah, one of the few movies that see a black female in an interracial relationship, right? And that's groundbreaking at the time. And it was so amazing. No one even noticed. She was such a superstar at the time. People were just like, oh, this is fine.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what was amazing about the thing. It's black one white, and it's thought there's a couple.
Yeah, it's that awful thing. I hate the term, oh my god, I didn't even see colour, but she was so famous. That's what happened, and that speaks to her talent. Thank you for her voice, amazing. Secondly, she wasn't here when Bobby Christina died. She died already. So what was the family doing for that to happen? The family should have got involved, so she's a genius. I'm sorry.
It's unanimous. Gone genius. I tried everything there. I'm not going to tell you what I actually believed, but I'm just saying I was firing all guns. Please send all hate to my personal Twitter. I lap it up from a narcissist who may Thank you very much to my panel. That was a tough one. We introduced her, but she is a genius. Thank you very much to Jodie Mitchell, Athena, Kublenu, and Dana Baptiste. You've been absolutely awesome. Thanks for listening to Evil Genius from BBC Radio 4. You can listen to all our past episodes on BBC Sounds. We have singers aplenty, from angel dust-loving James Brown to murdery, talentless, woman-hating Sid Vicious, who the panel voted, well, I won't spoil it for you, but let's just say I won that day. Hit subscribe for plenty more!
Hi, I'm Alistair Sook, and I want to tell you about The Way I See It, a brand new podcast, a 20-part series in which we're throwing open the collection at MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, to some of the sharpest creative minds of our time. We'll be speaking to comedians, Steve Martin, writer Roxanne Gay, musicians, Reich, and many, many more. I'll be your guide throughout the series, so join me as I explore one of the greatest collections of modern art in the world. If you'd like to hear more, just search for The Way I See It on BBC Sounds. Da konnten die Hand die Arbeit und die Leid. Was haben Sie dieser Musik gesagt? Find out what they know. Om ellers skal til for, at du har det godt, uanset hvilket job du har.
I didn't do anything to you, please!
Det er cool. Og få de første to.
If they don't know where a lab rat is, move on.
Krig færdig. God arbejdsplads. This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Warning, this episode contains strong language. Genius. Do you have people you adore? Prepare to witness good names darken more quickly than a Scottish summer sky. Everything you thought you knew is about to get bent double with a dirty reputation rod, and the rodding will be severe. Strap in. Strap on! This is Evil Genius! Yes, welcome to Evil Genius of BBC Radio 4, squirting salty truths into your ear holes. Live from the freeze, make some noise! Yes. And we're ruining reputations in the grounds of the awesome George Heriot, bang in the middle of Edinburgh, of course. If you are listening to this catching up after the bloody 2020 revolution, we should use the correct name from the city, Sturgeon-Grad. Just north of Mitchells. Sorry, I have to say the incantation. Blessed be her fruits, under her eye may the Lord open his mouth. I'm going to get some more to... Evil Genius is the show where we take legends and we let truth bombs off underneath them. My guests, poor sods, must then decide one way or the other with brutal clarity, evil or genius. In previous episodes, we discovered Einstein's biggest atom bomb was his ability to explode his wife and children's brains, his callous philandering and controlling bastard tendencies. And he was a monumental racist who crushed his workers when they demanded better pay. I know which of the tools he would have been. Oh, wait a minute. Wanky isn't a character. I expel someone for doing something bad. But today, my Chester guests must restlessly assess the one, the only, Lou Reed. Walk on the Wild Side, Perfect Day, Satellite of Love, The Velvet Underground, only the most influential band ever, Bowie's best friend, Andy Warhol's biggest inspiration, rock music's most original voice, and the creator of so much pretty, perverted, poetic music that still perfectly encapsulates New York. Or as I like to think of him, a slightly less shit Bob Dylan. Was Lou Reed more evil than genius? And what's tiny than my fucking budget? have an amazing panel today. We've got Sophie Duca, breakthrough, awesome stand-up, presenter of the BBC podcast Grown Up Land. And also, you're the host of this amazing stand-up gig. We may see it touring somewhere at festivals, sometimes in London. Wacky Racists. What goes on there, Sophie?
Yes, I have to say, when I talk about it, it's not actually a night for actual wacky, actual racists. I'm sorry.
Oh, my uncle. What's coming?
Not the same bigots, it's a night. It's a comedy night. It's a really great comedy night, but we also have a one-man, white-man house band, and we play games like Pin the Tail of the Honking. It's a big... It's very fun.
Neil Delamere. Need I introduce the Creme Delamere? That's how I think of you. That was a show title of yours, one year. And you're on tour with your show, en4cer666. So look out for that. Check your social media, stalk it. And Laura Lex is in the house, touring her show, Ninja. Oh, and she's a multi-award-winning comedian writer. Only that. But hello, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. Laura, your voice, so I think before we start with the movie, I want to know the most location done.
I've been thinking about this. The one that sticks out in my head that I always feel really guilty for is I once made a woodlouse farm in a wheelbarrow, and I had set it up with really good intentions to be a lovely place with life to live, and then it rained, and I went indoors, and I came back and it was a water park, and they did not survive.
Often animal torture leads to other things. Check the hard drive, check the patio. That's what I say. You never know. So, you know, Steve, what do you done apart from eating colourful things?
I try to be more plant-based, as so many of us are, but I basically eat everything. And I bought some vegan duck, frozen vegan duck, and was picking up on the stove, and I was like, this doesn't taste quite right. I don't know what to do about it. And so I looked in the fridge, added all sorts of things to it, and the key ingredient to making vegan duck taste amazing is duck fat.
Genius, adding duck fat to vegan duck. Boom. Neil Delamere.
Most evil thing I've ever done.
Or genius.
The naughtiest thing I've ever done, and it's pretty naughty. I ran through a wheat field. Farmers were very upset.
Absolutely genius. Right, so some more information about Lou Reed. Lewis Allen Reed. Sounds like a not particularly fashionable menswear shop. Do you know what his real name was? Rabinovitz. His dad, an accountant, his family came from Russia, changed it. He was born in Brooklyn in 1942 and moved to the suburbs where he attended school and was bar mitzvah, and he would later shape a swastika into his hair.
Oh.
A schoolmate said he was always more advanced. He wanted to be a top point. We were looking at girls with Playboy. Story of old. We all know that. You never feel Playboy. He rebelled violently against his middle-class Jewish upbringing and suburban Long Island environment. He raped his parents. That's a Love Island, right? I said Love Island. That's terrible. He comes up with the boys and the girls and one. He rebelled violently.
Fellow human.
Come on.
Let's walk together in love and tranquility. Okay?
Let me talk to this guy. Put me on speakerphone.
He raised his parents passionately.
Okay, trust fund fetus, you've got one chance before I take this fucker's collar and chain off. The raid! The guy's in white. What have you done with Lab Rat?
I don't know, man. I don't know. There's some guys in white on Elysian Island. Some kind of new wellness venture my dad's going to invest in. That's all I can tell you.
You better be right. Now get the fuck out of here before we grind you into paste.
They actually test that. They say it's for his behavioural and mental health issues he figures to treat sexuality. Then early in 1965, Reed formed a quartet with the avant-garde electric viola player John Cale. The Velvet Underground. Now, how does this show work? Well, let's face it, Lou Reed is a titan. He's the foundation upon which so much we love music and otherwise sits. So it's my job to detonate the truth bombs via the envelopes you have in front of you. The envelopes have been randomly allocated, and envelope 1 will detonate the first truth bomb, which will steer the conversation we had it. I ain't that. Neil Delamere has it.
This is from Rolling Stone in 1975. Had he accomplished nothing else, his work with the Velvet Underground in the late 60s would assure him a place in anyone's rock and roll pantheon. Those remarkable songs still serve as an articulate oral nightmare of men and women caught in the beauty and terror of sexual, street and drug paranoia, unwilling or unable to move. The message is that urban life is tough stuff. It will kill you. Read. The poet of destruction knows it, but never looks away and somehow finds holiness as well as perversity in both his sinners and his quest. He is still one of a handful of American artists capable of the spiritual poem run.
Yeah, we're starting with the genius here. He addressed the underside of life in New York while challenging standards of sexuality and gender with a straightforward, non-judgmental practicality that was decades ahead of its time. This is stuff we're not even getting to grips with now, is it? Sophie?
Okay, you're saying he's a genius just because he likes to shag a lot. That's the thing, he's like, he doesn't judge people.
And this is back then. This is Rolling Stone in 1975, so he's sort of dissolving pro now 40 years ago.
But if you're a genius because you want to shag a lot, well then Love Island is Mensa. The weird thing about him is you didn't know anything about him really, and you said where was he from? Because he documented the underside of American life in New York. You would think he was gritty, kind of Hell's Kitchen sort of thing, when he was a middle-class Jewish boy from Long Island, and that just kind of blows your mind. You rebel so much after that. It's like if Ed Miliband did a grime album or something, it would just be. It's completely bonkers.
You don't get to say that without demonstrating a lyric. But okay, is it amazing rebellion, or is it a bit fraudulent if someone's cozy middle-class Jewish boy and then dons a bit of eyeliner and acts like?
As a cozy middle-class stand-up comedian, it's genius. I think it's alright. You can't help where you came from. If you came from deprivation or you came from privilege, you can't help that. It's what you do with it after that, I think, that matters. So...
Well, he was authentic. That's the thing. People really love what they always say about him, that he was authentic. So he did Transport, massive success, and then he just went, I'm going to do something else, completely unsuccessful. He didn't sell any records, and he did it because that's the way he wanted to do it. You know, and nobody else did that. No, like Radiohead didn't go, okay, Computer was brilliant. Now let's cover She Bangs by Ricky Martin.
Oh, they should.
Like, I'm not saying they should now.
All She Bangs.
All She Bangs.
They bang.
He was completely authentic in that.
Is that a mark of extra privilege that you can choose to try to be unsuccessful? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I've had a bottle of wine, but
No, Laura.
he was very successful, and then he kind of had that thing of like, is it fair to throw her under the bus? Why not? J.K. Rowling. Of writing a really successful thing, and then you have the choice to go, oh, but now I can try and do something that might not succeed. Not everybody has that fallback, that's okay.
Yeah, but he gained his own privilege by having the first successful
I
record.
think he started out with some privilege.
Is it a form of appropriation if I come from a cozy background and then sort of hang around with the people who are homeless and struggling, or the underclass, or the underside of people, just like sort of vulturing on their right? Slightly distasteful appropriation going on there, Sophie, don't you think? Or is it fair play as long as metal machine music, whatever the fuck that was, comes out of it?
I mean, I think I when I was growing up on the upper side of London, it was very nice. It was High Barnet. Some of them wore eyeliner, very exciting. And I think, like, when you're a kid, you can kind of get away with that. You're like, these are these nice, exciting people, and then you go home. Like, if he's young and he's finding out about new people, a lot of people can be like, oh, stuffy, but he was expanding his mind.
And Neil, so you came from are you posh Irish, would you say? Would you say you come from a middle-class, comfortable, posh Irish background?
I could literally say anything now, and you would have no idea if it was the truth.
Well, I will, because I have the truthful answer. Are you the truthful answer there? Neil's posh. No.
These extras can be coming back at any time.
Are you not? No.
We've
But
routed
what
enough food into these
I'm trying to get
fuckerinos.
at is, you're trying to have your cake and eat it. So. And I'm saying, if someone's doing that with Irishness or class in Ireland, there's something slightly repulsive and repellent about it.
Yeah, I suppose, but the question is, are you defined by where you're from? So, as Laura said, so he didn't fit in there. He didn't want. I don't know if he was originally going to fit in, and then they electrocuted him, which is what they did. You know, they gave him ECT, as you mentioned, and I think that would kind of throw you off course. There's a lot of course there. It's a flashback. But if you were to recently when Neil has started singing show tunes, Get the Jump Lead tomorrow, I think that would be...
Is your mum called Maura?
No. I just don't know why I said Maura. I'm just thinking about Love Island.
That would make my year if your mum was called Maura, just like in Love Island.
But that would kind of throw you out. And I thought he thinks that he fitted in with those people, you know. The thing about those people is that if you read about that sort of avant-garde scene, it does read well in hindsight. But if you met those people, like if you went up to somebody in Edinburgh and said, "Oh, I'll go to your gig," and they went, "It's not a gig, it's a happening."
I think what's really difficult is if you've got a load of people that have all come from different walks of life, and the one that succeeds is the one with the privileged background. That's very difficult because you cannot ever work out whether the reason you could take more chances and more risks was that your rock bottom was significantly higher than your peers, had a lot further to fall down. But then on the flip side of that, you can't control what your parents did. Like, I think class is a really interesting question for our generation and stuff because, like with comedians are quite like chippy about class and stuff, but you think as soon as you've decided to be a comedian, are you not automatically middle class because you've gone into the arts? Like, is that not the most middle class? Like, my parents are a teaching assistant and a builder, but I talk like this and I'm now a comedian that lives in Brighton. Like, I don't know what class they are. I think it's really interesting how much you blame someone for where they came from crossed with what they do for it, but you do have to just keep checking. If we're trying to look at the underside of New York, but the ones that keep succeeding are the ones that actually had a house in the Hamptons, are we ignoring somebody somewhere?
So it's obviously the most famous song, in my opinion. Perfect Day. Sangria in the Park.
Oh.
Is that your perfect day? Sophie, what was your perfect day?
Oh, perfect day. I think...
can't even afford for me to go dun, 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 dun. Can't use it. Can't be clear.
Even if we do
because no one has any idea what you're humming.
Thanks, Neil.
My perfect day. Not sangria, because I had that. I went to Spain. I studied Spain and also the language of Spain, Spanish, for GCSEs. Had sangria, but preferred calibocho, which is Coke and wine. Coca-Cola.
That'll be edited badly.
So not sangria in the park. I think a perfect day. Probably in a park, probably lots of drunkenness, lots of food on tap, beautiful people touching me from the underside of New York. I heard, though, that Perfect Day is about not any of these sort of like prosaic delights, but actually about the drug heroin.
Well, he denied that, but I'll tell you who might know the answer. Who tried out his perfect day, didn't you? In stand-up form.
Perfect Day actually was because when I was a teenager and I was very much in the flush of young love with my teenage girlfriend as well, I had no money. And I said to her, listen, for Christmas I'll plan you a perfect day. And I used the lyrics of Perfect. That was about 16, and I used it always elicits that response. I know the lads now hate me. Boom. So we drank sangria in the park. You have to make sangria.
You didn't do skag over by the dog shit bit.
No. Well, it's much easier to do Perfect Day lyrics than walking the wild side. From a Tesco. You wouldn't have a dance woman who takes that flower away and so we drank sangria in the park, watched a movie too, and then later home, and then the two of us do what teenagers do, and
Playtime.
The only double bed in the house was a sofa bed downstairs, and our parents were gone away, and it was sprung like a bear trap, this thing. So it was kind of half bed. It was like half bed, half catapult, right? And we did what people do, and then halfway through, the bed returned to its natural homeland in the couch. And I genuinely looked down, and her head was gone. It was gone. Like, it was like Shag and Anne Boleyn at this point. Right?
Oh, stop it! I'm getting around.
Wow, how specific and niche thing how would that be?
It started off like a perfect day, and then it ended up like a confession of how you beheaded a woman in a sofa.
I say an autobiography.
Fantastic. In 1966, the Velvet Underground became affiliated with Andy Warhol, who recognised the band's potential to expand his collision of high culture and pop culture into the realm of music. The Velvet Underground and Nico is considered one of the greatest albums of all times. Brian Eno once stated that although few people bought the album, most of them were inspired to form their own bands. Lou Reed's goals as a writer were to bring the sensitivities of the novel to rock music, or to write the great American novel in record album. To kill a fact. The credo of the Velvet Underground, above all other considerations, freedom to do whatever they wanted to do, explicitly inspired the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia. Indeed, President Václav Havel credited the album, which he bought while visiting the US, as his motivation.
I like the fact that the music is like revolutionary change, like cause things to happen, but I don't like that he inspired people to form their own bands, because I think that unsuccessful bands is not a fun thing.
I like the fact that you've taken out of that. Inspired other bands to form, rather than he changed the fabric and structure of the country. This is amazing. I mean, anyway, I've never done a gig. I mean, I did one gig in Essex where I mentioned Kent, and they ripped the chairs out of it called the Brute Bomb.
Okay, good sleuthing, FM, but I got more questions than answers. Why would a pharmaceutical company send a hit squad to kidnap Lab Rat? Is it the FIB? Deep State?
Waterloo by ABBA. You don't suddenly think Waterloo's a masterpiece, you think they're a fucking knobhead.
Hang on a second.
Or the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
So I love that excuse of going, well, nobody liked it, but we, the select few that learned to play guitars on our own, have deemed it genius anyway. I'm a big believer in populism.
It's a good point. At the end of your Edinburgh run, you went, nobody came, and nobody saw the show, but some people came, and all of them are comedians now. Like, that'd be terrible.
That means your show was shit. I mean, all that means is that was shit, and other people saw it and thought, I could do that better. It doesn't mean you've...
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, but the Václav Havel ones, it is pretty impressive, so that you change the country. Are you going to go with what Laura said you don't believe in fire caution? It's not... Well, I don't... So it comes to dancing.
No, I don't agree with you. I agree with you massively that music can change the world. In fact,
David Hasselhoff, Berlin Wall.
So it's not like, but it's fundamental, doesn't it? It's really nice to listen to. Like, it shouldn't be a chore. Like, sure, it's inspired a revolution, but if every time it comes on at a party, everybody says goodbye and goes home, it's not music anymore, is it? It's propaganda.
Or the fire alarm.
Everyone's got a new amazing reaction. It's not a problem. I don't think it's horrible. It's not a problem for someone else. Why is that okay? But when I hear Bob Dylan, yeah, where's my mix? And the songs like, cut on my arm, and then, revolution, and I'm like, fuck off. If I'm into techno, I like to not know, mate. There's a record shop, have you got the one that goes... There's like a split one coming up, Gary. That's the one I like.
I think all music should be made by people who can't sing. It's much more interesting.
You don't believe that, seriously?
No, I do. Because when people got like an instrument, when they got that on a dead voice, then you're like, oh my god, they're singing. Like when people sound like they're going to die halfway through the song. There's a musical sung by cats. People love it.
Punk.
You have to say that, like, in terms of his, are we judging his genius? He did have a massive influence. So he did influence Bowie or whatever way you want to say it. No punk without him, no glam without him, you know. And Bowie did produce that album, and he's the one who created kind of that sound. I mean, he was always a bit of a cultural sort of a magpie, but he's also the one who produced the sound of Walking the Wild Side of Perfect Day. So the people who say they were influenced by him, they were massively influenced by him. And also somebody like Boy George has said, if you just think about the kind of societal influence, so you're a young gay guy, you're growing up, and you see nobody who looks like you on television, nobody doing the things you do on TV, and then you see Lou Reed being completely sexually open, being completely sexually liberated. Boy George has said that was inspirational. So you can't deny that.
Pretty strong point, isn't it? So,
Yeah, I think if he allows some middle class Jewish boys to see the show, okay. I think you can't deny that he was like a pretty magical person to be around.
Envelope 2.
By the time he arrived at university, he had adopted the persona that would define him throughout his life: sarcastic, cynical, and cruel. As his first girlfriend recalls, she wasn't happy unless he made somebody more miserable than she was.
And this isn't just that he was moody. He was one nasty little work. Intimidating, horrible. Described as a prick and a monster by friends. Most of them fell out with. Is it authentic to be exactly what you are and not a people pleaser? Or is he just a horrible bastard and I need to get in the evil box ASAP? Sophie.
I mean, he's just become 200% more fuckable to me.
Wow. I understand change it. We can both learn the same eyeliner. You can feel me on the side of my knee. Anyway, I think that's why he adopted the persona, because he's like, this works. If I'm a douchebag to people, they will flock to me. That's why I was a virgin for so long. So, hey, I'm really kind. It's one of the reasons. I want to make a distinction here, because there's difference, isn't there, when you take pleasure in being nasty? Absolutely, yeah. He was a nasty piece of work, and he was horrible to his first girlfriend, massively horrible. Like, he would say stuff to her, like, or I mean, get his friends to go in and say it, so they were really quite turned on.
Just use the key card you found to get inside. We're looking for any intel that might tell us where they're keeping lab rats.
He was really nasty to her. And then he hit his first wife, Pete, of domestic abuse. So he's a horrible individual. And also, if you look at the songs, you have to figure out when he sings about some of the things he sings about is he the narrator that is completely distant from what he's singing about, or is that him? So he sings about, I think Carolyn says, you can hit me all you want, but I'm still going to leave you, sort of thing. And is that, how close is he to that? But he was nasty.
But was it persona? What do you think, Laura? He once said, I created Stephen. I have nothing faintly in common with that guy, but I can play him well, really well. What even at home, he's punching a girlfriend and it's playing it a bit too well. Come on, that's bullshit, isn't it, Laura?
I guess it depends what you define yourself as, whether you define yourself as an ethereal concept in your head or as by your actions. And if your persona is playing out actions, then that is who you are, in my opinion. I think you have to take responsibility for ideas and actions that you put out into the world, especially if you're influential. I don't know, I think I'm a bit of a pussy with stuff like this. I just think, why wouldn't you be kind if you could?
With a lot of me, obviously, yes, the mask ever dropped, public, someone come up to me, at the wrong moment, on the wrong day. I've had someone that, as I'm putting like a spoonful of food into my mouth, sat with my 3-year-old daughter, go on photo, mate, and I'm fucking food dribbling down my chin. I've still managed to, no problem, hold on to my
I once had a woman come up to me in Primark and go, you try this on, you're the same size as my husband. Try that, now walk up and down. She has a limp, so keep it. I swear to God, I had to walk up and down with a limp for about 5 minutes. And she goes, that's great, you're losing great. I had to try on 3 jackets. And read her, I married her.
I don't understand why you want to cultivate nastiness. From musicians to politicians, I don't see what the personal play off what the win is if you are playing making people miserable. Where's the win?
If you say that you are miserable, then people don't ask you to do stuff. So if you're very nice, people ask you to do stuff, presumably charity stuff or, contribute to their albums or whatever. And he said, if you're Lou Reed, don't do that. So that was some degree of control as well.
Why do you want to be, I don't understand then why you want to put yourself in this position where I want people to like me, but fear me and hate me. Why put yourself out there as being, I mean, I think it's even Alexa sucks as a child. We're like, please everybody stay away, I'm dancing. I think it's probably more people that aren't left, I think.
When he had a liver transplant, and a Physical magazine reported the news under this headline: New liver complains of difficulty working with food. Let's go envelope 3. Who has it?
Envelope 3. Oh, here we go. His attitude to women was complicated. He was fundamentally bisexual. He had an uncertain, mutable sexuality, which he tried to hide at various times in his life. Don't forget that he grew up in the 1940s and 50s in a middle-class suburban community when such things were much more difficult. He was attracted to men sexually, but he liked to have women friends. And he liked to be married. He was married 3 times, the last time to Laurie Anderson. He also had a de facto 4th marriage to a gay male transvestite in the late 1970s. Biographer Howard Sims.
It's not.
Lou Reed needed women to look after him in his alcoholism and drug addiction, but he wasn't as keen on looking after them. Average religion. violence there as well. It's one thing to use the verbal violence, I mean, it wasn't gender specific, it hit everyone. He even hit David Bowie when he worked with him. And Bowie told Reed that he'd have to clean up his act so they would work together again. He was just a violent bastard that couldn't sing, Neil. What's all the fuss about?
Why would you want to hit Ziggy Stardust? Like, you wouldn't. I don't understand. There's no excuse for violence. There's absolutely none whatsoever. So he's just a nasty piece of work. I wonder, did anybody ever commit the same violence towards him? You don't read about it in quite the same way, you know. So he's constantly in conflict with himself, I think, and you can see that. You can see that in the songs as well. Some of the songs are very angry, and some songs are kind of peaceful love songs. So everything is constant conflict, even in terms of the album style as well, I think. So he's just in a state of chaos all the time, but it doesn't excuse that sort of abhorrent behaviour. We're going on this one,
Yes, I don't think you can hit people and be a nice guy.
Is it possible to say, as Barker does after all is uncovered, I still admire and enjoy his music no less for knowing as much as I do about his life. I mean, if we get to the crux of what Evil Genius is about here, because when I watch a film now, if I see it produced by Harvey Weinstein, yes, I can see what the film that I got nothing to do. It's ridiculous. But that, I do think twice. These things matter, don't they? Or do they not?
I have a rule for it, and I'm like, I love some of his music. It's very good. I don't want the band to profit from it. I think if they are locked up while they are dead and they are not profiting, then you can listen to their music. There are loads of amazing authors that were very, very bad people, and if they're not personally profiting off the pain of people who are still alive and telling you that they had bad things done to them, then I think it's just music.
Series 1 and 2 with plenty of the authors in there. What do you think, Laura? Is it okay?
I think I really agree with Sophie, actually. I'm on that. The only thing that makes me kind of go, a little bit, is that if we still idolise people that get away with this stuff, do we greenlight it in a casual way for the next generation of young people?
I think that some people think that you can't really be a genius unless you are also a bit evil.
I am.
Struggling.
Neil, is it ever acceptable to go, I don't care what this person did, I'm just loving?
No, I agree with Laura. You can't go, I don't care what this person did, because there's stuff that there are lines you draw, I'm afraid, you know. So there's certain things that you kind of overlook, and then there's you just can't.
Is there any examples from your canon of...
For me, genocide would be the line there. Yeah. That's so much. That's a high bar. Yeah. If it appeared in The Hague, I generally only listen to the first or second album.
So any sounds you hear in the background, listener, we are in the middle of the festival of wonderful fireworks every night. We're going to go straight to the judgment. It's complex, there's no denying that what he did was important and changed the course of the music, but he did some quite nasty things as well, and it's time to vote. Lou Reed, Velvet Underground, Shaper of Counterculture, Evil or Genius, Sophie Duker, you must vote first. What are you saying? Over the sounds of Edinburgh's fireworks.
Sounds of my ovaries exploding. Forward, evil, but I would. So
you're voting evil. Evil. That's one for evil. I'm going to go to... I think I'm going to go to Neil Delamere. The fireworks really are getting dramatic now. Yeah, I'm hoping it is fireworks. By the way, the fire exit for the talent is just there. And I can see that the fireworks are a very displeased Lou Reed from hell. Probably his next album. It's cool noises exploding. Neil, I'm going to go to you next because I know where you're going to be next because you think I'm going to say genius. Well, and then there's split decision. But don't feel pressure because there's still the drama of will we get unanimity, because not every evil genius is a unanimous vote. But we know you lived your life through a perfect day. We know you have respect for the music. But do you think...
I don't think I can give that up, so I think I'd still have to listen to that because it's attached to a personal memory. I think he was an evil man, but he did a lot of good as well, so I'm gonna go genius.
You're gonna go genius.
Yeah.
The scale of the musical genius, the innovation,
and the inspiration to marginalised groups as well. Yeah.
That is one evil, one genius, one. Or that means the casting vote goes to Laura Lex before the shelling gets so bad. Do you feel like we should be digging trenches here at this point? Laura.
Sturgeon slamming doors, isn't it?
Evil or genius, Laura Lex, we need your vote. Please see the scale. When I ask people if they may be struggling with their vote, see the scale in your mind. Do not underestimate the weight on the genius side. So much of what we take for granted culturally sits on top of Transformer and all those other wonderful albums. But is it too much? The coldness, the serial killer outlook on cruelty, the misogyny. Evil or genius, Laura Lex?
I don't think I'm comfortable defining anyone as evil that went through what he did and provided a light for so many people. So I'm gonna say genius.
That's it, Lou Reed. Total surprise, Lou Reed has gone. Genius! That has shocked me again. Thank you so much for our wonderful panel. Sophie Duca, Neil Delamere, Laura Lex. Thank you for listening to Evil Genius. Like Sid Vicious, James Brown, Frank Sinatra, John Lennon, Tupac Shakur, and Kylie Minogue. Not really, we haven't done Kylie. Hit us up on BBC Sound. I've been Nick Grimshaw. Thank you very much. Good night.
Oh, sweet Jesus! I'm with the wrong lady!
Here's a question. A man escapes from one of the world's most brutal dictatorships. He's risked everything to do it. But once he's free, he digs a hole and he tunnels straight back in the back.
Trust me!
Why? Find out from BBC Radio 4
Hey,
with
this
me,
place is
Helen
a war
Merriman.
zone,
To
but I'm
subscribe,
in.
search for
Let's go
Intrigue,
get our
Tunnel
lab
29
rat.
on BBC Sounds.
This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
Labrat, are you okay? Can you hear me? Can I get a badunkadunk, buddy?
Badunkadunk! Hey, tell Dax not to
Music,
worry.
radio, podcast.
I cracked my
Warning,
tooth and
this
I took
episode
my
contains
emergency
strong
dose.
language.
I'm in my kennel, man. I didn't tell him anything.
Ooh. Oh, fuck, never mind. We gotta get you home.
Hello. Joan Crawford was a child-torturing harridan of Olympic proportion. Muhammad Ali, a world champion at racism. And Queen Victoria was the top at shagging. She pounded Albert till all that was left was his shiny toddy ring. This is Evil Genius from BBC Radio 4. Yes, the place where we throw light and shade on legends from history. But that light doesn't just illuminate. Oh no. Like a biographical CSI torch.
Oh, my
it
apologies.
picks out the telltale
My name is
fluids
Dr.
of
Isaiah
naughtiness and
Friedlander,
woe. And sometimes
PhD.
we even
I
discover
want us
uncomfortably
working
pleasant
together.
things
Yeah?
about
But
people
what if I
it's
shit down your neck
fashionable to hate.
instead?
The premise of Evil Genius, like my cousin
Coprophagic
Nathan,
ideation.
is simple.
Fascinating.
My panel
I
of
wish we
talented
had time to
do-goodies
explore
here
it,
to see the
but I'm
wrong
afraid I need to
jesters
expand
will
your
hear
mind in
astounding
another
facts
direction.
about a historical icon. And at the end of the show, they must vote simplistically, one way or the other. Was that person more evil?
Deep down, I'm not
or genius.
I'm a healer. I see our society in terminal catastrophic
And how in
psychological
3
decline.
series is the budget still at this
I
level?
can help. Only I
What
have
more
the
do I have
cure.
to do to get that put in
Psychedelic-assisted
post-production?
therapy with
I'm
a
pressing
new
a button,
drug
guy.
10
I'm
times
literally
more
pressing the
potent
button of
than
a £1 battery
That's
machine.
why I founded
If everyone
the
wants to
Free
live in an
Mind
age of idiotic
Pharmaceutical
cancelling,
Corporation
well, I'm turning it
to
into a
produce
format.
the only
And
medicine
today's
that can
panel
heal
will be
broken
picking apart
spirits.
Oh, listen to
Oscar
him.
Wilde.
He'll drive you
They are
crazy.
Jen
With
Brister,
this
who has a
drug,
book out. It's called
I
The Other
can
Mother.
bring
Check it
peace
out.
to
Larry
all.
Dean, talented stand-up from
I already
Scotland.
have the
And
precursor
Esther
chemicals.
Manito, about to
80%
head
of
off
the
on a
world's
charity tour.
stockpile.
Catch her wherever you
All
can.
I
It's
need
not for free though,
is
is it,
your
Esther?
friend
It's to
here.
raise money.
He's one of only
Which
3
charity?
people in the
The
world with a
Penny Appeal for
PhD
Forgotten
in this
Children?
precise field.
Wait.
So,
Is
our
this what
subject
this is
today
all about? You want lab rat
is
to crank out
Oscar
your shitting and plug
Bingle
on the cheap?
I
O'Flaherty
wanted
Willis
him to be a
Pyle,
pioneer, to
born
help
in
me build
Dublin
a temple of
in
peace and
1845.
sanity
His dad was
deep in the
William
jungles
Wilde,
of
a
South
successful
America.
ear and
But
eye surgeon
I'm
who
afraid
had
his
3
mind is
illegitimate
too far
children
gone to
before
be
he
useful
married.
to me.
His mother, Jane, was an Irish
Your other
nationalist,
accomplice,
and he had a
on
brother
the other
who got the
hand,
name he should have had,
Really?
Willie Wilde,
look at me.
and a sister, Isla,
Come to
who
South
died of meningitis
America.
at age 9.
We'll be rich.
Oscar went to Trinity Dublin, where he was
Fuck
dressed as a
you,
dandy
but I'm
carrying
gonna...
napkin knots,
Idiots!
and Magdalen College,
Degenerates!
Oxford, where he
Do it,
grew his
loot
hair
your
long.
chairs, Bo!
The biography
Blind.
so
What's wrong with you? Why can't you see?
Here's the chairs, the only way!
Went on a lecture
All I
tour
can
to
see is
America,
this is
damn it,
pointless.
in
Your time is
1883
up.
and married Constance
Lights.
Lloyd in 1884. The couple
What
had
the
2 children. It was around this time that Wilde met Robbie Ross,
Sorry.
a 17-year-old who observed 3-year-old Wilde homosexual sex. If you're over 50,
Where is he?
homosexual is the pronunciation, suppressing
Shit,
the
the
urges
car,
of
we gotta
uncomfortable
move.
confusion.
Let's
Wilde's
fucking
career took off in the
move.
1890s with the publication of his novel The Picture of Dorian Gray, and plays including Lady Windermere's Fan and Important Weirdos. During this time, he had met Lord Alfred Douglas, known as Bosie, and Wilde became infatuated. Bosie introduced him to an underground world of male prostitutes, and in 1895 it all blew up. Stop it. Bosie's father, the Marquis...
Shit, Dick! Where am I? Hey, am I driving?
Back to the freak shop. Now, let's go.
I am Marquis the Fox. I'm going to go Marquis. I'll say it quickly. I'm domestic, so my vowels are indeterminate anyway.
I heard it.
Bosie's father, the Marquis of Queensbury.
The screaming man! He tried to therapize me! Get your hands off my mind, man!
Spelling it wrong.
Man, he's in bad shape.
Jax, I want to come home, man! I want to come
Wilde
home!
unwisely decided to sue the libel.
Just
3
hold
trials
on.
later, Wilde
Fucking Freelander.
is hard labour for gross indecency. In prison, he wrote De Profundis, a 50,000-word letter to Bosie. His wife and children moved to Switzerland and changed their name to Holland. After prison, Oscar also fled to Europe, where he spent the rest of his life buried in months. He wrote The Ballad of Reading Girl in 1897. He died of meningitis in 1900. Today we're going to be deciding whether the martial witticism is useful or dubious. This is a man who came up with epigrams such as, we're all in the gutter,
We
but
lost
some
them.
of us are looking at the
Let's
stars.
get home.
And I
Sorry,
can resist
Jax.
everything except
Sorry,
temptation.
nothing. Fresh
You
meat.
decide for
Get us back
yourself
to the freak
whether
shop.
that is
Let's
in
go.
itself evil or genius. But what one-liner might you live by? Has anyone got any suggestions? Esther Manito, have you got a killer one-liner you live by? Just do it.
Just do it. Not well. Just don't do it. I've always.
That would be a brilliant one.
Thanks for your help getting this one back. We're gonna get Freelander for this. I got a special move all saved up for
I
him.
definitely try and live by having no expectations.
I got a
that's
present
been
for you.
my thing. My thing. It's my thing.
I like that, thank you. I can't bear how optimists dominate every self-help book, every bloody podcast. You change to the positive.
Yeah,
what
it
use is
doesn't work.
that?
It
will be
doesn't
shit
work.
eventually.
It's the thing, don't you think positive it will happen? No, it won't. It's
That's
down
not
to
living,
fate.
isn't it? Like, he's got that thing where...
You've got to, whatever happens, happens. Shit or good, it's...
But there's also something in between optimism and pessimism which people ignore called realism. Yeah, I'm not saying it is going to rain, but it's equally idiotic to say it's not going to rain. It might rain, carry an umbrella. And Lindsay, my missus, is like, if you carry an umbrella, you might make it rain. I'm not a druid.
No,
I can't generate rain with my rain stick.
Hello.
He said I'm muffling. Anyway, I love that one. Jen, what one liner might you live by?
I don't live by any, but I like...
That's great for a stand-up. I've got no lines at all for night.
Absolutely none. I like that Dolly Parton one. If you don't like the road you're on, pave a new one.
Oh,
come on.
absolutely.
It's not very green,
kiss again.
environmentally. Very turf a new one. If you don't like the road you're on,
build a monorail.
build a monorail.
There we go, I've updated it. Larry, dare I ask what one line you live on? I was like, oh, glad to see it.
The one I've been thinking of lately is karma is revenge for lazy people. That's pretty much.
What, just waiting for something bad to happen rather than getting on
Yeah, exactly.
organising it yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, we're going to crack straight on with picking apart Oscar Wilde.
Lab Rat is back in the troop! Badonka-donk! I got my doses all level and I'm feeling good! Good enough to go visit a piece of shit psycho corporate therapist and rip his balls off!
Well, I think the received opinion of Oscar Wilde is genius. It's up there in the firmament, so I think we should open the first envelope. Now, this show works by my panellists being armed with envelopes which they crack open, which may reveal something surprising which drives the debate forward. Who has envelope number 1?
Me.
Esther, what have you got?
We still quote him today. We probably all know someone who can't mention a handbag without saying a handbag. If someone looks young for their age, we'll probably suggest they have a picture in the attic. He may be known for the Rent Boys, but his writing lives on too.
Yes, now we all know those one-liners. But was Oscar Wilde that good? Has anyone here actually read Dorian Gray or seen his Blazing Stage?
I saw Lady with his fat.
Maybe we could read his Blade. Jim Davison really well.
I know, I saw it.
I saw it was on telly, wasn't it? I don't really remember. I don't really remember a great deal about it. I think I liked it. I don't remember.
We've got 3 people of letters and words around the table. 3 people who trade in witticisms for a living, and none of you have seen this guy. No, that's not.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy Dorian Gray. I think the only 2 I've read of his is Important of Being an Ace.
Oh yeah, I've read that one as well. Yeah.
Which is fine.
It's quite camp, isn't it?
Quite camp.
It's quite camp.
Would actually a glitter gun have to go on? Judy Garland's place on the first page to be very camp, actually.
I just wanted there to be a bit more mermaid in there.
When he tells Algernon to come to sandwiches like going into the country, is that not camp?
I mean, but I think Dorian Gray is quite a good story. I think it's quite a gripping story.
I think this is, for me, is astonishing about Dorian Gray. It's one of his most modern myth I can find. Most myths that we trade in are fairy tales from hundreds of years ago. Some of them are Greek myths. Yeah. But if you say about the portrait in the attic, this is just over 100 years old. It's one of our tropes, one of our myths we traded in. Was coined. I mean, that
yeah,
in
it's
itself is a marvel.
selling its soul, isn't it? Yeah. But I thought that was. I think it's a good story, but I can't really talk about the others because
there's loads of literary, I suppose what we would describe as genii, that whose works that probably I haven't read or I'm unaware of. Does that mean that they're any less genius because of it?
No, but many of the people you cite, say the 3 of you hadn't read many Charles Dickens, but across the board, if I got lots of comedians, many of them would have read lots of Charles Dickens. My suspicion is Oscar Wilde lives on more in reputation than actuality, and when the plays are put on either regionally or in London, it's just quite a lot of aunties, granddads and tourists that go and see it, rather than people who want cutting edge literature or actual literary genius. Good answer.
Did you have to read Oscar Wilde at school? I think a lot of us have read Dickens and stuff because we had to at school. And I think it does crop up on the system.
Larry, have you got a lot of my school mind.
That's where he's testing his new product. Let's get over there.
We're not letting over that stuff. Never existed. No, I don't even because I always kind of heard about Oscar Wilde because it crops up in like culture and that, but then so I knew he was a writer and that, but then I've never
Bender.
I read a couple of things before. He's talked about writer. I've never read. I knew the importance of being earnest and that, but I've never read any of the stuff. I've never read any of the plays. To be fair, I can't imagine seeing an Oscar Wilde play done in Scotland with the Scottish actors. all
This time the trick is absolutely fair. Last time I saw her to this piss, she ripped a guy's skull clean out of his
I
head.
suppose what he was brilliant, it was very early on writing these things you could argue about being gay. The Dorian Gray, for example, and Woodley in Earnest, both about doubling double lives. Like one person
It's inside a goddamn prescription bottle. We gotta stop this. Time to take a
apart.
goddamn stand.
The problem of being gay back then, you had to live socially a double life, so there's that. I also want to interrogate the actual way he wrote it. So I've quoted a few of the epigrams already, so we're all in the gutter, looking at the stars. I can resist everything except temptation. Is it genius, or can we do them off the top of our heads?
Well, I can't. I mean, like, you just asked me.
Okay, I'm good at everything except being bad. Okay? Easy. Pick a word. Pick a word.
Well, you can all do that now because we can look at what he sort of, the rhythm of the, you know, the lines that he's created. And, oh yeah, I can repeat that, I can imitate that. But he was still the first one to coin it. He was still.
A lot of the phrases are empty, don't mean anything. They're just cheap syntactic reversals where the beginning of the sentence is changed to its opposite meaning at the end.
Well, I think with a lot of people that are kind of coined to being geniuses, I mean, there are other people in the world that can do the same thing. It's just that person is the one that's been highlighted. And he's obviously very articulate and he's got a great imagination and he's a good storyteller. But whether that makes him a genius, I don't know, because I don't really think there's always just one person who's so unique to something that no one else can replicate it.
Only lowbrow are constantly highlighted. They say I'm a child. What is genius?
So, my pal, you know that phrase of you're a unique individual just like everybody else, and that's pretty fun. My pal says that he made that up, and I don't think I think that's a basic one as well. Like, but it is the thing that I do think everybody can make them up. Like I can't even make one up right now. It's still legendary in the morning, but I'll do one this evening. I'll tweet the show when it goes out.
I'm often surprised when an audience cannot see a punchline, which I'm like, well, we all know what the punchline could be, and then they're laughing hysterically, like, come on, I can all see that coming all the time.
I just have my own jokes.
Yeah, of course.
I remember your answers to useful.
I know what's coming.
I'm sponsored to literally being paid to know what happens. It's really good. You know, it's like looking at the audience going, soon.
Then I sometimes think about delivery as well. It's how sometimes the joke is delivered that, yeah, you can see it coming, but then the way the person delivers it, it gives it kind of...
I mean, the last line of Ernest, the character's called Ernest, and the last line is a pun on how he's going to be honest all throughout the rest of his life. I've truly learned the importance of being earnest. I mean, if you did a drum roll on that, the drum kit goes through the stage and then into hell. So obvious and banal is the pun.
But there's something about him, wasn't he like just incredibly charismatic? He was able to hold court, he was...
Does that sound like some of the worst people we've come to denounce in society?
It just sounds like a stand-up comedian. Exactly. Sounds like it could be any one of us.
But is that the point? Is he just a funny socialite, or is he a great playwright?
I think a funny socialite, he's quite articulate and quite kind of engaging, but maybe problematic.
I think he was more interesting politically than he was linguistically and in literature. He's more interesting to gay icons, more interesting to he's more interesting in what he stands for us now looking back in our time to then than he is for making a pun on the word earnest. I think we should move on to envelope 2.
Envelope 2, that's you.
Not only was Oscar on like how known that thinking of what is not a crime of homosexuality and very shame on his family, there's also suggestion that Boyce's wife early decade 40 was syphilis. What a lovely chat. His wife and children were less important to him. I mean, it is ironic I was masturbating when I discovered that fact. No, seriously.
following his own path. But his own path. I think sometimes that should deserve a slightly more lofty thing, such as making political change, or trying to get a law change from homosexuality, or creating an artistic discourse that has been seen for, or doing for the environment. It's not necessarily just going around the corner to get a hand candy or a red boy. That really follows the true path of a lofty spiritual sense. That's brilliant. No, you can't just treat a political statement. Freedom! No, but just a bit serious. Can we make comparisons to people who leave their families after coming out as gay or trans, or was also just a selfish person that gratified himself sexually? We need to pick this apart before we vote this guy evil or genius, because we literally worked for towering, and we need to make a decision. Was he just selfishly getting his oaths, or is it analogous to today's people who go, do you know what, I'm leaving my family to be true to myself?
They can, because that's accepted. But also, I do think there is something, you can't just treat somebody badly. I mean, he's clearly still sleeping with Constance.
Yeah.
So, it's not like...
Well, there's evidence he's bisexual, some of the evidence is that he's bisexual.
Yes, you can't just sleep... if you, passing on disease and treating her badly, treating the kids badly, I don't think that's reflective.
Welcome to my little clinical trial.
With their sexuality.
We're testing a hypothesis.
Their family, but then on the other hand, he would...
Will a sufficiently large dose of my new formula cause you to become permanently insane?
But then on the other hand, he was obviously wealthy enough at one point that he could have left his wife, and then it could have just been the thing behind closed doors that he's having a relationship with who
Look at yourselves.
Set up with her kids.
You're true.
Financially.
Oh, it's a circus, all right. Involved by father-mother syndrome, passing out in an orgy of self-destructive, narcissistic violence. Conventional therapy simply isn't enough for you. You need me. But alas, just as our degenerate society creates your pathology, so it also stigmatizes my cure. Freed mind pharmaceutical. A revolutionary, highly affordable cure. Okay, buckle up, everyone. Time to kill some clowns.
An agreement with his wife and said, I will look after you financially, you and children, till the day, I die and make sure that you're okay.
These are my people.
But I like her. So, is that okay? And I wonder, but then also, we don't know what the hell.
Yeah, the evidence is very much the other way though, which is the eyeliner, and also there's
It all begins again.
The type of literary philosophy practices called affective realism, and very simply, what that means is you will.
I'm down the cloud. You can only hide behind your mask of frivolous nihilism for so long. I order you to lay down your weapons, apologize to my staff, and enroll in my 2-week anger management retreat. You will sign over your business, your supplies, your staff. You will accompany me to South America. We will make progress. You will build my paradise brick by brick.
Why did he treat his children badly? What evidence is there? There's no evidence he treated them
Look at this! A kid with a hamburger for a head!
Larry, you come from an ultra heterosexual masculine part of the world. I come from working classes. You come from Glasgow, where a man research like that.
Mom! It's just a snack! Don't be so uptight!
Now, 2019.
Pubehead! That's what they called me. Pubehead. Bravo. Who's a pubehead now, you hypersexual, neurocognitively impaired, snub-nosed little tramp? I'm Dr. Isaiah Friedlander, PhD. While you were at the prom with a fucking jock, where was I? That's right. Studying for this moment. And I will not be denied what I deserve by some band of freaks Freaks! Another free fucker? Guys! We have a free fucker overall!
Or something, yeah, it was just a blank profile as well. Yeah, so you have to click on and then ask them for a picture of that. It's like playing a game of like.
Don't look at his eyes!
That's interesting. Yeah. The further you get from London, the less plane because the grinder profile is really okay. When we reach the city walls,
This is bad energy, guys!
I fucking hate therapists! Look in the mirror! Confront yourself! I do not need to put a stop to you. I merely need to let you self-destruct.
I think the whole thing that you were saying about being an aesthete is obnoxious, and the very idea.
Wait, that's me! I'm trying to kill me!
To have that sensation of that it should be all about your pleasure is completely like grim. But the idea that it was easy for a man to be out and in a double life, I think it's quite reductive. I think it's
I don't deserve to die!
Quite within that scene or whatever, or wouldn't know he's gay. You still feel there must have been a threat there in the back of his mind that he never got caught to go to I don't think I can't believe that.
No, but then we've got
way to live your life.
So many inner selves.
Writing philosophy is work. It's like wanting to take up when you're too young. I'm not saying it's easy to be celibate. I'm not saying it's easy to be celibate, but you've got 2 children and it's totally legal and different. But the hard labor that you probably should have sex together with everyone on it.
Hey, look! It's me!
Intelligent kind.
Your body language tells me that your stress levels will soon kill you. Release yourself!
Give it away tomorrow.
You can tell it wasn't just gay, it was my own thing inside another man.
It took me the fourth guy had sex with, and then I realised it. But I'm thinking he looks like he's a stereotype of gay. But then I'm thinking, was there gaydar before radar? I don't think so. Even when I was a kid, I can remember just looking at George Michael and Freddie Mercury on the TV, and the ultra hetero cavemen men in my family, no one had a clue. And Freddie Mercury calling himself Queen and everything. It's like, can't be gay. I think we've only picked up in the last 20 or 30 years those behavioural cues that set off gaydar.
Also, that whole idea of men being flamboyant was it wasn't uncommon then. It was a sign of having money. That sort of fairiness was not seen as being a dandy was seen as being gay. The only other thing I'll quickly say is when you're saying that he was going out taking these risks when he knew what the consequences were, I think that is quite a common pattern of behaviour that you see in men now, that they've got children, they've got a family, and they will compulsively go out and have sex in parks or with men boys, and it's almost like they want to get caught. There's almost a bit of them that wants to get caught, and there's a pattern of like sort of self-destructive behaviour. That is
selfish, self-destructive. Wait there, Larry. You're just trying to find out whether you can or not.
Speak after.
Okay. I think given the nature of envelope 3, you should probably crack it open.
Hey, how you holding up after that trip? Last thing I remember was getting teabagged by my evil twin. Then I woke up with my junk stapled to the D of the Vinewood side. I gotta tell you, Fresh Meat, Friedlander may be a human hemorrhoid, but he's got some good shit! I'm still getting some effed up visuals over here. Now, from what I remember, he's planning some kind of move to South America. I say no fucking way. We cut him off, take his whole stock as compensation, and leave him for the dogs. All we need is his location. I'll see if I can get any of his goons to squeal. Get down here when you can.
The daughter of just Hannah, who invented the dessert. Margaret Cox. I mean, you could let him off the hook. Wasn't particularly interested in underage ones, or we could see a worrying proclivity for boys around the 14, 15-year-old mark. When asked if he'd kissed Walter Granger, he said, "Oh no, never in my life. He was a peculiarly plain boy." So Bosie did have one decent line in his poem. Bosie, wild lover, coined the phrase, "the love that dare not speak his name." And this was brought back to haunt Wilde's accepting a poem that was sent to Wilde and was quoted at Wilde's thesis draft. So this is how Wilde describes it. I mean, it's almost funny, but not really, the horrible context. "The love that dare not speak his name in this century was the great affection of an elder for a younger man, as there was between David and Jonathan, such as Plato made the very basis for his philosophy." You just want to get dressed up as Agamemnon and start having sex. I mean, you can feel it seeping from the text. As such, you would find in the sonnets of Michelangelo and Shakespeare. There is nothing unnatural about it. It is intellectual, and it repeatedly exists between an elder and a younger man, where the elder man has intellect, in brackets, and a boner, and the younger man has all the joy, hope, and the glamour of life before him. Have you ever heard such intellectual backflipping to describe wanting to get dressed up as characters from the Iliad and rub linseed oil into each other's bellends? I've never heard it.
But also the fact that, like you said, he was a poor kid. So these are kids that are obviously.
I'm on the clock. What you want? Some wheels?
Exactly. So how could a 14? Let's give him.
It's coming at you.
Make the 16 for the moment, because it's only an allegation from a chambermaid. But how can a 16-year-old boy really, as he sells his body for money, be pondering on Plato's Republic? It's not, is it? He just wants half a crown to get a hot new set.
But that's the very idea of the older man and the younger boy, or the older man and the younger girl. It's only recently, and I think in many ways, in the last 5 to 10 years, that we're even questioning that kind of.
Well, it's a post-Weinstein interrogation of the correctness of those power relations.
Yeah, we understand that those power dynamics are wrong, and that there's no. That when you're talking about a child, that they're not going in and making active choices, that they're often being groomed and manipulated to be in that situation, or in that case, selling their bodies in order to eat. But I think, and I'm not defending that behaviour because it's obviously abhorrent, but I think we have to sort of put it in the context of the time. And I think if we're only just getting our heads around it now, I think, about a century ago, I don't think anyone would have had a problem had it been an older man and a young girl.
No, let's just play a thought experiment and say he didn't know the boys are 14. He just saw teenage boys who, in his time, he deemed to be consenting.
How old was he?
Well, he was in his 30s and 40s at this point. He said of the Sleeping with Rent boys, it was like feasting with panthers. The danger was half the excitement. So this comes back to the aesthetic philosophy. I mean, is he just laying long words, flowery thoughts and philosophy on top of gratifying the contents of his pants?
Yeah, it just sounds like your creepy teacher at school, doesn't he? Like the guy that was now and I, like that type of thing of like, I'm just going to do what I want, and I'm just a bit of an old perv, and then I'll just say, no, it's not pervy, it's all very intellectual, and you wouldn't understand unless it's my brain is so superior.
Exactly. And Larry, come on, this is wrong, isn't it? We've got him back to rights here.
No, I think it's just trying to make it alright. It's like, it generally sounds like no one you do like a dick joke, and then you get reviewed, and then the reviewer says, oh, this is a dick joke, and it's just like, oh no, it's not, it's an integral part of the show. Yeah, like, you've no idea, it's actually, there's a subconscious level that they'll hit you on.
I was interrogating the dominance of the phallus in heteronormative culture. The punchline was I'm wanking a cup, stop lying. No one's denying the importance of being earnest, so I was being a bit harsh earlier. Go and see it, it's an amazing play. The line's still seeing any of our lines we're seeing in 120 years' time. We can only dream one semicolon of anything we say. It's funny. This guy's still smashing it 120 years later, literature-wise. We'll talk about it.
Honestly, Esther, for crying out loud.
Esther, dear, how many injection?
How can I judge this man for being a perv when I just
smash Wildy and locks flowing, may I say?
Thank you. That's what I model myself on. He is
my idol. So we've got all of that, but this gratification seems to be a bit of a smokescreen. This sort of literary, linguistic, artistic gratification. The praising of the pre-Raphaelites, which was the style of art got behind, very indulgent, retro style of painting, expressive, heavy on the canvas. It was a massive cover, and he get his end away, stuff his mouth with chocolates and rope everyone with a lavender glove. So which stands? That would be the worst way to be touched.
Honestly,
If I saw a lavender glove touch my shoulder, I would scream the BBC down. I would scream the window left.
Hello.
You smell that, man? The last thing you smell is lavender. You can't smell lavender.
That word is coming quick, isn't it?
That would be a good horror film, wouldn't it? The lavender glove. So we're going to have to weigh that up. Is it a thing though, Larry, as the only gamer at the table? Is it to do my duty though, so? Is it still a thing, this idea of the sort of wise, older, intellectual, wealthy, artistic man initiating the younger Adonis into the ways of Europe? Is that stereotype still go on?
People call daddy or whatever like that.
Right.
But when it comes to, there's a lot of the guys
I know you're like, where the fuck am I in the airplane right now? Where's Dax? Well, he's interrogating some Friedlander white coats with whipping torture. By the way, not pretty, but here are the results so far. Friedlander is moving fast with that product he told us always. He's already loaded it up on a cargo plane and is getting it ready for relocation to South America out of LFIA. So we're doing a hijack. Mid-air. Why?
To do with homosexuality. I think that's what you were saying earlier. I think that's really common when anyone goes to somebody's shoulder. Like you say, it's often that thing of codependency. They're going to educate about the world, or they're going to look after you financially, or it's somebody who doesn't feel completed themselves.
I don't see as much in straight relationships though. I see the age differential, but not the sort of art.
That's the plane taking off right now.
Gallery curator with Debbie from Loughton. You don't see it as often. You just don't. Whereas,
if you get close enough to the back of the plane, you can remotely open the door to our signal box. Right there on that dash.
And Jamie
Got
said
it?
this the other night on stage on my age is 22, and you're only 29 or something like that.
That's nothing.
What is it? I mean, it shows too much. It shows how much the culture is. I'm not being but my lad.
Once you're close enough, use the signal box to start the hack. You gotta stay in there. Then as soon as the door opens, it's mid-air collision time, baby!
And I hesitate about asking her out to now. Were I single now and everything was saying now age up to say that it was the same size, I would think twice. That's how much culture has changed.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about that. It was basically like, I was born 10 years ago, it was 12 years. It's 12 years, obviously.
But it's where those 12 years are. It's where those 12 years are. Like, you're 24 and they're 12.
No, I was 25.
Everybody is here!
All these jumping down both. It's a sign of how much that I trust now. I think I'm speaking gorgeous, but I would be nervous about taking out someone I've met from the front of my power property there. I'm towering over them with a line in the phone. They paid to come and see my shows. A decade younger than myself, and I would question that. So how much different was it 120 years ago?
I think if you look at, I'm not making excuses for its behaviour, but I'm just trying to contextualise it. And also when we're talking about sleeping with rape boys, you know, within the circles that he's walking amongst, it would not have been unusual for men to be sleeping with young girls and prostitutes. That would have been very common.
But I think you could have a relationship where you're both developed adults. I think that's different. I think the thing of going with teenagers, I think that's a weird balance to have.
But there's already a weird balance because he's paying for sex.
I do so enjoy our sessions together.
25
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid your time is up.
Yeah. So is it that we have an issue
Forget
with
him, it's the chemicals we're here for.
or is it that we have
Can
an
you
issue
land this fucking
with
thing
him,
or not?
Being an nasty, or is it that we have an issue with him not being... I mean, what is the evil?
Thankfully, I don't have to untangle that because it's time to vote. I've run out of time.
I hate you.
this is a man, a gay icon on the syllabus. A feature of Hayley's past, possibly Hayley's hero at the start of gay rights, whose epigrams can stimulate the mind, but also when an underage boy possibly gave his wife so selfish bastard when it makes sense. It's time to vote, Pamela. Was Oscar Wilde more evil or genius? I'm going to Esther the intro first. Esther. It's horrible, isn't it?
I know. Well, I think just because of the old children thing, because I've got kids myself, I just think, no, put your kids first, so you're just going to be not, black being around, being president, and just going off your own gratification. Whatever that is, I don't care, but you don't just go and dump your family and do that. So I'm going to go with
fine. I think we go to Larry King next. Yeah, the horrible shit. Hopefully. It might not be, depends what Larry says.
I think we've got one of those two personally, that's not great. But the fact that he was what still, the fact that he's been an ad hoc or something like that. Clearly he was good at what he did.
I like the fact that you're very for officer. So go on, Larry, so I'm going to go with genius. Right, brilliant. So it's one for genius, one for evil, which is exactly as I hoped it would be. Oh, God. More generous with the casting vote on Oscar Wilde.
It's difficult because obviously, the whole Aspie thing and the very idea that he gave his wife syphilis and
possibly that wasn't and
also was neglectful of his children, but I think he was a man that was of his time and probably in lots of ways fulfilled his duties as a husband in other ways.
This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my fucking life.
I just don't know that we can judge him in the same way that we have now. I know you can make a decision. I'm
doing the scales for you.
Where's that fuckaroo Freebird?
Place the artworks on one side, feature
no use crying over spilt shit. We got work to do. Come on,
I think I'm
help me
have
load
to
this
say
stuff in the truck.
Genius.
Oscar Wilde. The child buggering selfish bastard.
Looking good.
Well done, Esther. Having morals.
You heard that?
Well done, Pam.
Fucking cops! You deal with them, I'll keep loading the truck.
You heard them, man! Get the fuckers back!
I'm only playing with you. This is not an easy game to play. And by the way, for those of you complaining, we're being reductive on purpose as a way of making fun of this idiotic cancelling culture we have. So stop complaining on my Twitter, please. That's why we're playing the game. Thank you for listening to Radio 4. All our past episodes Victorian writers who were bastards to their wives and children. One of the jobs 6 years ago, it was a total shit. What someone tried to accept society, someone much younger. Try again. Alert. Hit subscribe for plenty more. Goodbye.
Here's a question. A man escapes from one of the world's most brutal dictatorships. He's risked everything to do it. But once he's free, he digs a hole and he tunnels straight back in again.
Just hold him off!
Why? Find out in Tunnel 29, the 10-part podcast series on BBC Radio 4 with me, Kim-Pedersen. Subscribe, search for Intrigue, Tunnel 29 on BBC Sound.
This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK. BBC Sound, music, radio, podcast.
Warning, this episode contains strong language. Greetings, Evil Genius has returned, and it's still hosted by me, generic human stand-up Russell Painter. Don't worry, BBC. I have diagnosed black feet, I have a collagen imbalance, which recognised disorder. Genetically, I'm only 38% British, and I was born in a county flat with a young struggling mum. I score surprisingly high, 3.21. Yes. Where we take rogues from history, but sometimes demonstrate how they were not even at all. Bernard Manning, so Or we take legends and show people where you never knew these well to have a listen to the Roald Dahl episode of Shocking. Yet people keep complaining. It's too simplistic. You can't just label someone into angelic or demonic. It hurt my feelings. Then, without irony, that same person piles in on cancelling a pop star, switching off a TV host, or voting for a one-policy polarising politician. Darling, we live in the age of Marmite simplicity. Why not turn it into an ironic game, hosted by a Nick Grimshaw lookalike who's flat feet and who grew up poor and is only 48% British? More work, please. And if anything boils human baseness and power down to its purest form, it's sport. Well, murder too, but, sport quite a lot. In previous episodes, we've besmirched Gandhi, we've lifted up Thatcher, and we've thrown everything we've got at melodic but angry John Lennon. So how about some literal mud flinging? Football, the sport that brings together the mind of Shrek with the movements of Darcy Bustle. How can such elegance inhabit the bodies of so many violent brutes? And the men's game is even worse. Today's evil genius is a figure that divides people in a way more than either divides itself. George Best. And by the end of today's show, my guests must simplistically vote in a way that will light up my Twitter with more trolls than a Scandinavian fairy tale. They must vote evil or genius. It's just by that sound effect at the budget, with quite close net figures. Yes, a sporting legend, George Best. That phrase is bandied about a lot, but this guy fits the description even better than Chris Akabusi or Tim Henman. George Best. And we're here to decide evil or genius. And my guests are a broadcaster who grew up within 2 miles of George Best in East Belfast. We've got Neil Delamere currently on tour with Andrew Watts, and Chloe Peck, who's just about to debut in Edinburgh with her show Alpha, and follow her on social media. She's performing on TV and popping up everywhere. So before we dive into George Best, a quick one to bring up the older loins. What's your best sporting victory?
I'd say, first of all, I'm not here to decide whether George Best is evil or genius. I'm just here to knock the absolute fuck out of you at the end of this episode. How dare you bring it up? That's a warm reason. Now that will be absolutely and I haven't emphasised you said something.
Welcome to the season of nothing. I'll tear the hole out of you.
I'm not your apology. You know, I don't support bias at all. I cheated in the top one, but I think it's better set up with that. I think all of in the late 20s. I think the greatest sport that you can probably be journalists, because in fact in 2012 I tried to track down every living that was in the gold medal, and there was 114 at a marathon. But even that ended in shame, because David Thompson got the team interest, and all that, and it's like it's all on us. I've got one more that it's not one of those all on yesterday. Thanks so much, Ben Cole. I know I'm really aggressive this stuff. And he emailed me back one line and just said, sorry, I don't do those all on yesterday. It's a bit rude. And I went, just ignore it. A few days later, about half a bottle of rye whiskey and sent it to lunch.
Like me, a natural athlete. I think a lot of people say what you do the 100 meters.
Love you, Lucha! See you back at the freak shop.
Really? No, I'm lying. I swam for my county. Yeah. But swimming for my county is like... It's not an inland one. It's basically like playing Gaelic football for Mozambique. It's not a massive genuinely I did, and but you're right, I used to swim against lads who learned how to swim in the wild, basically. Lads who learned how to swim in the
This is the motherlode, people! We are gonna get so fucked! There's gonna be enough left over to spice up the city's water supply for months!
I'll never forget when I was about 13, if you won your race, you could represent the county, and there's a guy, and I was there, a guy in Lane 1, and working in prison. He could only swim in circles because he learned how to swim in a well. And then beside him was just me, and then another guy, and his dad was going to have an animal in his farm. So I was in his farm,
from that violent storytelling. And there was guns on the land.
We gotta shake him and get this all over to the freak shop.
Chloe, great sporting achievement. One of us around the table that's got to not be great at sport.
Well, it's not that. Well, I'm fine at sport. It's a sort of tale of averageness, but a good averageness, the good version of it. So when I was, I think, 7 years old, we created the youngest female football team in the country at that time. And our first game, we played a boys' team. We were in the boys' team, and we lost 25-0, and we were all very happy. We had a lovely night, a really nice day out. And then by the end of the season, we managed to draw 1-1 with one of the boys' teams, and I scored a penalty in that game. So there we go. Absolute stonewaller.
What sort of penalty was it? Like, if it was a Panenka, I'd be unbelievable.
Yeah, I was a 7-year-old that did a little Panenka.
That would be so impressive.
No, I just walloped it as hard as I could, sort of at him, and it went through him.
Actually making you the most successful ever English penalty taker.
Thank you.
I have zero. I'm, illiterate at playing sport. I like reading about it and watching some of it, but I've got nothing.
I'm sure you like that.
I do, but for broadcast purposes, I love it.
Name a sport.
Gaelic football in Mozambique. So I was doing this true story. I had no female attention at school either, nothing. I was doing tricep extensions on the bench, and our gym people could look at the evening exercise. The first female attention I ever had, the girls were clapping, and I was doing tricep extensions. What they were
back at the freak shop.
Was every time my elbow extended and the bicep poked out, I was pushing one testicle out. You ever those trolls you find on holiday where you play the bulge? And that was it. I was bulgy bollock for a whole term. Anyway, on to someone who could play sports. George Best, born on a council estate in East Belfast in 1946, aged just 15, having been recommended to a Manchester United scout. He travelled to England to try out the Matt Busby side.
People, we are going to get so fucked. There's going to be enough left over to spice up the city's water supply for months.
He played for Man United for 10 years, and his skills on the field helped earn the club 2 championship titles and the European Cup in 1968. Busby was absolutely mad about trying to win. He did the swinging 60s hard and was successful both commercially, with a huge income from modelling and adverts. I know what that feels like. And with the ladies, again, and I even myself do it. His lovers included married women, famed actors, and 2 Miss Worlds. I was one of my finalists in the 16s. I took out for a Pizza Express.
Was it in walking?
He was.
Who else was there at the time?
I don't know, but everyone was sweating.
He was the list.
His partying lifestyle gradually morphed into a drinking problem. He married Angie. They had a son, Callum. The marriage ended in divorce. He married a second time, Alex Percy, 1995. That marriage also ended. George Best died in 2005 of pneumonia, septicemia, multi-organ failure, and gastrointestinal bleeding. Shot anyone? No thanks. In a moment, we're going to open the first of 3 envelopes. This is how Evil Genius works. George Best is one of these figures so large that even people who don't follow football have an opinion of it. Interestingly, on some of the groups I'm on, like family groups, I just put the name
See you
George
back
Best.
at the freak
What
shop.
word came back, because George Best wanted his legacy to be greatest footballer ever. But people seem to come back with alcoholic and womanising footballer. So we think we know these things about him, but I put these 3 pack bomb envelopes. My panellists will open one. The pack bomb will explode and just let them come off the back of that. But before we do that, we've got Colin on the panel. What's Craiga like where George Best
This is the motherlode, people! We are going to get so fucked! There's going to be enough left over to spice up the city's water supply for months!
Are not necessarily connected, no. You can't look at it as a mass. So say Belfast, you've got the Donald right from you've got Tully Carnet, and they're all their own sickness states, they're all their own areas that have all sort of came together to form a big capital city. So he was growing up very much just in that area. He would have been very wary of where he went out of that area. Football would have been lucky enough to take him to different areas, but that would have been something that probably would have been a blessing. But yeah, he would have got a very deeply working class area. The shipyard still would have been open and employing most people in Belfast, and the very heartland industrial East Belfast shipbuilding, plane building, and civil war.
And is it true that you're on the hill?
With me?
That's what I've heard a rumours and you're on the wall.
Yeah.
There's George Best on it, and the Patrick Hilton drew it,
and card fracture.
I invented the last bit.
We gotta shake him and get this all over to the freak shop.
Was never here. Ulster says, but it's not right. Is it true? You know, well, yeah. It's Belfast Boys, and it's on it was Hard Blogger did it, and Local Beer. And yeah, they asked if we wanted on this. And,
is it a faithful replica, or is it like the sort of Ronaldo statue?
It was very accurate in terms of how I looked 10 years before. Yeah, so in other words, people look at the mural and they, because back then I had the glasses.
Leave us alone already!
Go, oh wow, no, now there's one best, there's contrast, there's superintendent. You know, genuinely, I wanted to buy myself and go see his nice off. I literally ended the Russian station. Wow, they get paid for it. No, he is looking on it. Absolutely. So you're going to get hands with best of the rest of the time. You're an Irish hero, or a British hero, or a hero of the Irish of Ireland, no one cares. So there's people in Ireland, there's a kind of a claim to it again, and there's certainly a conversation in Belfast. You can split people in. And it's like kind of Barry McGee, people say for boxing. Sometimes someone is so good, so handsome, so experienced, so of the moment. How much guilty is it going to be in the show? Oh, God. I don't think that's the best one, but I think he's fine if he had a small window thing with the thing. Kind of reminds me of Aiken. I think good look. But like Jack Nicholson, he reminds me of, that like he was hot for a bit and then just got really creepy looking. Like I think he definitely had a couple of years when he played his best football that he was stunning. I tell you what he did in the previous game though, you see footballers today, they have 30 million, right? They're worth millions. And they've only got 1 foot. Right? Only 1 foot. He can kick with 1 foot, so you know that. This is a great thing to talk about kicking 1 foot you kick. But he literally only kicked better on his legs than he kicked. So you know what he did as a kid? He would hit a tennis ball against the back door in the alleyway. See when he could do it. He started hitting the door handle instead. And he wouldn't stop until he could do it 100 times with his left foot. It was literally just for balance. So people say George Best can play with both feet. Well, he represented both feet, metaphorically, and he actually learned how to play with the foot just for standing. The dedication of the greatest sports stars, very few of them, did come natural. I should move on to the bit. I mean, me and Neil do that with puns every morning. We try and both send each other 100 puns before our first.
And in different languages.
I think it's time to bust open envelope 1. Chloe, Pets, if you would like to open envelope 1, please.
I'm ready. Oh, okay, this is relevant. Handsome, genius footballer. At the time when he first got in the team, no one had seen his like before. Someone who was so small and tough, who would go into tackles, but also had the ability to turn people inside out and beat anyone he liked. George was as good as anyone you could see. He used to embarrass players time and time again. It was paradise watching George play football. Sir Bobby Charlton.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Dennis Law, who said he was only somewhere between 7 and 8 stone when he first arrived, so obviously he was only 15, but he did nothing of it. When Maradona came to America at the time when George Best was playing, one of the first things he said was, "Can I meet George Best?" So when people say who's the greatest player ever, no one likes to say, but all the people thought of as the greatest player ever, all thought George Best was maybe the greatest player. Was he?
George Best was the best. The answer to your question is, I don't think you can compare the best 50 players of all time, really. There might be little margins where one's better than the other. But George Best and Pele, when they played together in the States when George was on a serious period of decline, they had a race.
Okay, here's my suggestion. We lay low for a while, by which I mean we sit in the freak shop and start mainlining the...
At Best did it first. Pele says he's the greatest, that's good enough for me.
But I also think that
the end of the road, the climax,
comparably of Messi today. If I was going to make any comparison,
I love you.
Now because Messi has that sort of low center of gravity and can beat players, and it's one of those things where as someone watching from the outside, you can see him running through defences and thinking he's going to do this, he's going to do that. You could predict what he was going to do, and the players are obviously thinking like, oh, he's going to do this, but you can't preempt it. It's like you know what he's going to do, but he can still beat you. I explain that terribly, but
I think that's what the great shame is. That is, as he got older, he would have had to adapt, and he might have dropped back. He might have.
Say older, but at 28, he was like, oh, I think I might need to retire.
I know, but that's what we're missing out on. We're missing out on how he would have adapted. What sort of player would he have become? Would he have dropped deeper? Would he have started spraying the ball all around the place?
Okay, the word you underestimate one thing is the East Belfast factor.
men from East Belfast, how strong they are, how great they are, prolific in bed.
Yeah.
And all fantastically, comes 10 out of 10.
But also,
I just want to put that on record now.
Yeah, but I also want to put that at 28, if he's from East Belfast, like your good self, that he's got maybe 2 years life expectancy left. Generally speaking, so.
Can we just, we throw around the word genius, I mean, it's literally the nature of the podcast, and if we were talking about an author, or a painter, or a mathematician, or a physicist, it's much more easy to quantify. But when we talk about genius in sport, there is a class prejudice almost. It's someone who's just doing something elegantly and quickly, whacking a ball. It's not genius in the artistic sense that we understand it. Was he a genius, a true genius that stands alongside an Einstein in physics, Chloe?
Yeah, I don't think there's any need to compare, but I think that genius has like a quickness of mind and a like dexterity of mind that separates them from like not even the common man, but from like other people that are really good at that are like world class at sport. And he just had a mind that, as I was saying before, he just worked so much quicker than anyone else, and I think that is genius. And as Colin was saying earlier, it's not just that he was born with this God-given gift, which he was, but he then had the wherewithal to sort of hone that and become the best in the world.
100%. Einstein could not have done anything with any theories on a rainy Wednesday night in Stoke. Right? No. He needed the perfect metaphorical pitch. He did not like it up him. No, right? And he wouldn't have been able to play. Couldn't have went up against scientists like the Leeds United defence of that era.
When we're assessing genius, why do we always remove from it the ability to stick at what you're doing and continue doing it? Surely if someone is a genius and then at 25 starts to throw it all away, that is a demerit against the very idea that they're a genius.
Longevity is a huge
could have been a genius, but pissed it up the wall.
There's a line in what was a genius. So he said himself in the radio. He said, "At any point considered the greatest player in the world, that would be that's
But nobody does when he's
what he could have done.
Alcoholic, they say womanizer. They say celebrity.
No, I do think people think that. Maybe 1968, 1969 is the greatest player in the world. Some people just think that. But I think what he could have been possibly was the GOAT, was the greatest of all time. If he'd done what Messi did and had maintained that longevity for 12, 15 years, well then it's over the ages.
What you have to remember is like, again, it's that argument of if he was playing now, he would have been taken out of that working class background. He would have been put into academies. Had all of this privilege, all of this development.
We fucking did it! The revolution is officially off the ground. Next stop, the moon! And listen, we were going through freed fuck stuff back in his lab, and we found something pretty cool for you. Lucha was like, that's carne fresca style. And I was like, fuck yeah, it is! It's over there in the parking lot. Keys in the ignition, baby! And hey, remember, you're one of the troop now. That means you gotta swing by and get fucked up like once a week minimum. See you soon.
19 years old, you come from a council estate, and any female you meet with reason wants to go to bed with you. This question is so poorly phrased, so forgive me, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but if every woman around you is begging you to sleep with them, what is the genius thing to do? Yes, bang everything that moves, or no?
With Best, you have this really strange hypocrisy, which is he was ultra shy and didn't have a huge amount of, he wasn't like a pimp of the Krieger, you know, he wasn't the kid in school that got pubes first. So
but that was your team name, wasn't it?
So he wasn't that person. So I'd imagine, especially for him, when he did, and you got to remember, he was so early. You talk about evil or genius. The first word said about George Best in Manchester United was the word genius. Yeah. The Telegram to Sir Matt Busby, a legend of great, said, "I think I found you a genius." He began with the word genius round his neck. And I think when he got there, and at 19 at that stage, yes, you're right, stunning, women throwing themselves at him, genius on the pitch, recovery time would have been great in every single, no matter what he was getting into. I think for him it would have been a little bit kid in the sweet shop, because he wasn't that kid before the fame, and that makes him even more exposed.
But I think it's alright, like, you can shag a different woman every night, like, that's absolutely fine. It's just how you treat those women. And if he treats them good, then fine. But if he doesn't,
anything worse. It's still a different woman every night. No, but when do you watch your box sets? When do you relax? if you're seeing a woman every night and you treat them perfectly well and provide an Uber even when you're searching, it's gonna erode you. Do you check it between right? Could you bang someone, Neil? Could you bang a different person every night and it not erode you, regardless of your treatment of another person?
Of course, yeah, because listen, it's you. But it's some degree of pretense. One would think. Can't even get the words out. I'm imagining it. No, I think what we forget is one, he was so young. The 17 in whatever 1963 is even more innocent. Is even more naive than the 17-year-old now. And no one is arguing somebody 17-year-old now is fully formed and mature enough to do this. Like we forget, he is the fifth Beatle.
Russell, I know you said most of your sexual conquests home in an Uber. Did any of them given where you lived? No. Oh, just wait. I don't want to board a bus in my name. I've never put a woman in an Uber, thank you very much, as I had an Addison account in that time. Maybe we should crack open another envelope.
George Best heralded an era of footballers as celebrities. He had multiple endorsements, including eggs, football boots, and bras. He also modelled clothing and was one of the first footballers whose outside income outstripped the salary he earned from his club. All this culminated in a photo of him on his deathbed, appearing on the front page of the News of the World.
Right, so footballers earn big bucks. We know that salary, sponsorship deals, and terminally dull ghost written autobiographies. I shouldn't knock them really. I earn good money. Is it a bad thing? And was George Best patient zero of the coronavirus of celebrity? Because if we can pin this on him, the one who went to the dirty fish market of capitalism and brought the celebrity virus over to football and besmirched the games of the same thing, we have a massive evil problem.
Yeah, but it was always going to be something.
Was it though?
Yeah, it was. Circumstance, right? Like the driver.
Oh man, how many times have we heard that excuse in the last 5 years? You're not putting forward that he's an innocent victim as he put himself out into the media, photographs, slept with everyone that coined him in.
Yeah, but we're saying he's like a 17-year-old from East Belfast that's come over and just been like thrust into this embarrassment of riches with no direction whatsoever. Like he's obviously got no PR officer sort of helping him to navigate that.
But was he the first? Well, how much money did he earn when he was playing for Manchester United, a team that was being rebuilt after the tragedy of the Munich air disaster, and the Holy Trinity was forming and charted them all best? First 2 years, how much did he earn? Put a figure on it? Well, I know
I'm talking about in the senior team.
2 years, how much? I know Charlton was on like a 10,000 a year or something, and that was shocking. Nothing. He had to be an amateur for the first 2 years he played for Manchester United, so there you go. And completely exposed to Cookstown sausages.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, that's what he advertised. Cookstown sausages.
If someone waves sausages in front of you at that point, you're going to take the money.
Right, yeah. I think he got round from the council estate. Like, that's exactly what he did. I did the same thing. He put literally into the frying pan. I did the same thing. Yeah, but you must have done it when you first started earning money. What do you mean? Have you stopped running yet? You've got all the protection and all the knowledge. No, never. Have you stopped running from the council estate? It's slightly more. I mean, when you're in the comedy world, it's slightly more conflicting because anything you do that's not sort of outside the system, you can get in serious trouble for and trolled on social media. So if you appeared in the wrong advert, for example, when you're a new comic, you know that it's trouble. However, like you say, I come from the council, have I stopped running? Hell no. Am I still taking every corporate gig, including like the Heat and Vent Awards? Yes. Why? What if it stops tomorrow? What if I can't feed my family? What if I'm poor like my dad says?
You're never going to stop running.
No. Do you still?
No, I'm from quite a well-to-do family.
Neil can't. Oh, okay. Neil has some ventilator.
He asked me once, was I posh? That's how little he knows about Ireland.
But it's a point, isn't it? It's my thought process still. What if I stop working now and divide all my money up? Would I still have to work in the shop? Absolutely, mate. That's still my money.
Yeah, but also, you think you're talking about doing ads that don't necessarily are non-brand necessarily.
Yeah.
George Best, the most prolific goal scorer and scorer in a veteran, is offered a sausage ad. I mean, he's going to take it. I mean, he has to. It's bang on brand.
I could have done a Savoy campaign early doors, but I refused it.
Have you ever done any?
I can't. I've always taken the view that it's what do you gloat? Would you, regardless of the size of the check, would you risk doing an advertising campaign? And we saw what a colleague of ours did a side about that, and it was really unseemly, some of the criticism that was received. What has the person done wrong?
I'd do everything but gambling and hope that it was like the advert was enough of like the quality of it was that it would kind of go underground, and then like in 15 years time when I'm a great
online adverts are the bollocks.
I think the key is with Best as well is that because he's the first to do all these things, he doesn't, as Chloe said, he doesn't have PR people around. He doesn't, like his agents have been interviewed and they said this is the first time he even thought about it, even knew about it. So he doesn't have somebody going forensically going, this would be good for you, this would be bad for you, we can all have more money. He did everything.
This is all very theoretical. We're hearing, oh, I wouldn't do an ad outside of that. Listen, if you said to me now, I have sex with Nate, right, for £50,000 and say, no, open up a briefcase, right? Open up a briefcase for 50,000 used notes in it, and I'm taking him now, right? I did a supermarket ad.
2 minutes before you
I did a supermarket ad in Northern Ireland, and I did exactly that theory of no, and they went, will you just meet them? I went, okay, I'll meet them. And I went out in Northern Ireland, first of all, one supermarket, and I was like, I don't think it's for me. It was a really one at the time. Don't think it's for me. I think I'm more cool than they are. And they went, that's a shame. Here's a lot of money. Let us tell you about the brand. And I went, do you know what? I just want to make out of courtesy. And they went, well, okay. Well, it's just, the amount is this amount of money. And I went, tell me more about the product. And I did it.
Yeah. But I suppose what we've got to assess before we move on is how much we can pin. I agree, you're 17 or 18 years old, but plenty of 17, 18-year-olds have done vile things in history which they can't get away with, right? So how much do we pin on George Best, the osmosis of celebrity and fame into football, the transferring over as if this Beatle, there's been a few good-looking footballers since, but not many. Like
but on that level, Andrea Pirlo's
actual modelling. There's a Swedish one who lost his hair. What's his name? He's called
Freddie Lumberg.
Right. There's David Beckham looks good in pants. There's George Best and a couple of others.
Pirlo, he's stunning. Everyone loves him.
So it's not like it's a common thing.
If it can be monetised, it will be monetised, and he just happened to be the first. It's as simple as that. In the same way, the wage cap went. The wage cap was always going to go, and there was going to be somebody good looking after him. So he was just the perfect little package, I suppose.
0. 5'8" and a model as well. Hope for us all, lads.
I'm disappointed then, I'm hoping that, because there's many things you can put on the evil side for George. You went for that. I don't
mention that. Sponsored by O'Leary Supermarket.
I really hope it's not 50 grand. I really hope it's not 50 grand.
Says here, O'Leary's let the big shop commence.
The most juicy sausages ever recorded.
Okay, here we go.
You calling for some wheels? I'm Johnny on the spot. I'll hook you up. It's coming at you.
It was check up there at the doctor's for Colin. As we were driving, I see in the middle of the road this poor disheveled, so soaking wet, huddled over, walking down the middle of the fucking freeway. And I'm thinking, he's going to get killed. As I get closer, I realise it's my errant husband. He's been in a bender for 2 weeks, and I haven't seen him. I keep driving, and I say to myself, I've had enough of this. And that was the end of the relationship.
I mean, imagine that. Spinning in the middle of the carriageway thinking it's that poor person's the person you're married to.
And it's George Best.
What is it about footballers and alcohol? And given that everyone around this table has been on stage, at some, whether it's a DJ, a comedian, a performer, or whatever, what is this link between, which I think people would be interested to hear about, the finishing of the performing session, the game, the DJ, and this urge for the numbing effect of alcohol? Was his just ramped up to 10? Is there an intrinsic link that we need to let him get away with, or does he have some will here?
I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. He was very shy, by all accounts. He is 17, so it starts when he's away from his family that might suggest that he calms down. There is a history of it in his family. His mum had problems with alcohol and she got older, and
he died from that complication of alcoholism when she was 54.
He is a footballer, he has lots of free time, and when there was a decline in Manchester United's fortunes and he started getting suspended, and things weren't, like, he was prepared to do the work to become extremely skillful, but it did come easy to him in some regard as well, and when things got tough, that's when a lot of these problems started, I think.
But I also think it's like when you come off stage and you've had a great gig and there's all this adulation, you've got this massive rush of adrenaline. What you want to do is like ride that buzz, so you'll have a drink to try and like prolong that buzz. If you add into that the adrenaline of like the adulation of playing an amazing game of football, as well as the endorphins from doing loads of sport, that must be like such a fucking high for a sports person to come off, and you just want to keep that buzz going, basically.
And that's the whole cocaine theory with those stars.
So Colin, you DJ'd. You probably played much bigger audiences than us. Like, I mean, you're obviously like 10, 15. When you DJ,
70,000.
There you go. Right.
In Madrid there for the Liverpool Cup final. There's a very big difference between the numbing effects of alcoholism, the taking out of your mind, it being celebratory, and being an alcoholic. George Best drank at 11 in the morning.
Yeah, but
George
what I'm saying is
Best was outside the bar. No, I think
Chloe's saying it started because he had too much weight and fame on his shoulders.
Partially, it might have accentuated it, but I don't think there's anything quite like alcoholism. We don't finish this show today and you don't say, hey, that was good, just all fancy going for a little bit of crack. Because it's okay, because when we go home at night, we don't have to have more crack. Think about it. That's fine. There's no other example. That's the whole point, right? We don't go and shoot up on a Friday after work because we're okay, because we can walk away from it. This is an addiction we can have one and put it away. It's everywhere around you. There's such a big difference between punctuating your life and whatever it is with a drink. That's what makes me laugh when people go, double the price alcohol and that'll get rid of alcoholism. No, you'll drink a bit less wine. You'll say, do you know what, I'll make that bottle last 3 days. The alcoholic will sell the TV.
There's not a right or wrong answer, so just putting you into position. But is alcoholism a disease?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people say it doesn't fulfil the proper medical and biological criteria of a disease.
I'm not sure on it. The American Medical Association, but I think I'm pretty sure it's a disease. Yeah, no, it is. And I think, in my opinion anyway, as a gay person, and I think only a disease can explain some of the behavioural characteristics that alcoholism gets up to. I think for me, the evil bit, if there's an evil bit of George Best, is not the drinking, it's what someone's looking at when he's drinking.
That's exactly
So there's absolutely.
Let me just share a few of those details for the listeners. So George was arrested for drunk driving, assaulting a police officer and failing to answer bail. He spent Christmas 1984 in jail. When his wife, Angie, first found out she was pregnant, she went to find George in a bar and she said, you're going to be a dad. And he said, let me finish this bend and then I'll come home. And he did stay out for another 24 hours. In 1981, when he won Goal of the Year after an incredible performance for the San Jose Earthquakes, he hadn't drunk for 11 months. He then went on a 22-day binge. And after that, Angie says, George drank every day for 30 years. And mix that up with the wife beating, which he got into later in his life. He then remarried Alex, and she was pushed on one occasion, punched on another occasion. We have to constantly. Now, I've had alcoholics in my family. I don't know details. I'm sick of hearing such a nice person and not having truth. It's the drink that turns me into this monster. I mean, where do we draw the line? Is an alcoholic allowed to stab someone to death and we go, well, that was the alcoholic, George?
No, there's plenty of people who are alcoholics who damage themselves but don't do any of those things. They don't hit anybody. So that's the stuff that's kind of inexcusable.
But I think you listen to that happens in the public eye, right? Things that happen that we around this table, some of us may have witnessed firsthand about alcoholism. You judge it based within your family unit, and someone can be an alcoholic and can also have other facets of their personality which are unsavoury. Other people, yes, can black out and not know even what happens when they drink. I do know that alcoholism turns otherwise quite selfless people into very selfish people. The craving to get that next drink.
And he would say that
will
himself
often be
well.
shutting family out. Will obviously don't answer the calls, lock the door, as long as it means you can get round to the office and get that bottle of vodka. It's